All right, good morning and welcome. My name is Patrick DeRay, Chief of the Bureau of Automotive Repair. I want to welcome everyone to the second Bar Advisory Group meeting of calendar year 2023. It is Thursday, April 27th, and we are officially kicking off this meeting at 9:32 a.m. And this meeting is a public meeting that is being held both in person and via a teleconference platform, the WebEx platform. I want to first extend an acknowledgement to our WebEx support, our moderator, David Bowie, who I will be calling on as we move through various portions of the agenda today with calling on public comment and such. He'll be moderating that, as well as our co-moderator, Zach Richardson. Zach, can you raise a hand there? Okay. Zach is in our bar executive office, as many of you have come to know him over the years. Our webcaster is Alex Christescu. I hope I got that last name. Okay, good. Pronounced correctly. Alex, thank you very much. The webcast, meaning this meeting is being recorded. That recording will be up and available on our website most likely next week. Usually it takes about a week to turn it around and get it posted. All of the meeting, first of all, the agenda and all of the presentations are available and have been available for at least 10 days prior to the meeting date, as we always like to give sufficient time for people to digest the information that's going to be presented and discussed at our advisory group meetings. That's trying to adhere to the requirements in the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. We did have one exception this time, a presentation that's scheduled for 6th on our agenda, replacement tire efficiency regulations. We just received the presentation yesterday. We will get it out to everyone and have it posted on our website as soon as we do the remediation for Americans with Disability Act requirements. But we'll have that up and available as soon as we can. Let's see. I think that is, one other item of note before we do introductions. We have a public workshop scheduled for this afternoon from 2 to 3:30 p.m. It'll be in this very same room. It is going to be our third and we hope final workshop on vehicle safety systems inspection program that we are developing through regulations. We've had, as I've already mentioned, 2 other workshops with input from advisory group members and other interested parties to get us fairly close to a final product, both with the regulations and a document that will be incorporated by reference into those regulations, which is the inspection manual, where most of the language and the meat of the inspection process is contained. Matthew Gibson from the Bureau of Automotive Repair, who's been working extensively on those regulations as a subject matter expert in the BAR's executive office, will give that presentation, and then we'll open it up for discussion and comment from all of you who wish to stay and anyone else who plans to attend that meeting. Let's now, if there's no other housekeeping matters, we'll go to introductions, starting with Ruben Parra on my far right. And if you could just introduce your name and organization. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ruben Parra with California Automotive Teachers.
Jack Molidonoff on behalf of the California Auto Body Association.
Dave Robinette, business principal with iCar.
I'm Dave Cusa, Automotive Service Councils of California.
John Gallo, California Automotive Business Coalition.
Nikki Ayers, California Automotive Business Coalition / IAPA.
Matt Webb with the Automotive Oil Change Association.
Megan McKernan, Automobile Club of Southern California.
And because this is a hybrid meeting where we are meeting not only in person but via the WebEx, we have several members who are attending via the WebEx. It's either the member or an alternate who has been designated by the association to fill in when the primary member cannot attend. And we have a couple of instances where that has occurred. I will turn the introductions now over to the WebEx. In place of Gary Conover with the California Automotive Wholesalers Association, I understand that Steve Sharp, you are attending via WebEx. Steve, are you there?
I am attending. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Steve. Jeff Cox with the Automotive Maintenance and Repair Association Motorist Assurance Program, otherwise known as AMRA-MAP. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Good to have you.
Yeah, good to be here.
And then attending on behalf of Brian Moss, who is with the California New Car Dealers Association, Les Schweizer is attending via WebEx. Les, are you there?
I am here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Andrew McGee with the California Automotive Teachers. Andrew, are you there? Not yet in attendance, but when he dials in, we'll introduce him. Let's see. I think everyone else is there. Are there any other members who are in attendance via the WebEx? Okay.
Moderator, seeing none.
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. Is that David Bowie?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, David, for monitoring that. And if anyone else comes in, please feel free to, at the appropriate time, inform me so I can announce it to the rest of the attendees here. All right, we have a busy agenda. We'll do our best to get through it by the scheduled adjournment time of 1 p.m. If you need to use the restrooms, we don't normally take breaks. It just seems tough to herd everyone back into the meeting room and up to the dais here, and a 10-minute break always becomes 15 to 20 minutes, so we lose a lot of time that way. So just feel free to, and I will do the same, excuse yourself and use the restrooms, which are just outside the room here. All right, our first agenda item, unless there's any announcements or questions about any of the introductions or any of the comments I've made so far. All right, let's get started. Legislation and regulations update from Holly O'Connor and Kayla Shelton with our Bureau's Executive Office are here. Are both of you here? Yes, you are both. I had seen Kayla earlier. Holly, welcome. And this is a standing agenda item for all of our advisory group meetings. Try to be as informative as possible about the state of legislation and regulations that we are working on. And sometimes that's a challenge because it's moving all the time, especially legislative season right now is there are bills that are moving, and when we post our agenda and our presentations 10 days or more ago, there are things that happen that we'll try to verbally update you on that weren't able to make the press at the time because the activity hadn't occurred. So welcome to you both. I look forward to your presentation.
All right, thank you. I'm Holly O'Connor, and this is Kayla. I'm Kayla Shelton. We're the legislative and regulatory specialists at BAR, and as Chief Dre said, we're here to update on pending legislation and the regulation packages we're working on. And as Chief said before beginning, we do try to make sure everything is current on our slides. However, especially at this meeting, most of our slides are a little bit outdated, so we will verbally update you. But the legislative and regulatory websites that have the most current information are on our slides. Yes, okay, thank you. These are some important legislative dates. The most notable that I want to tell you guys is June 2nd, which is the last day for each house to pass bills that are introduced in that house. On the next slide, these are the 2023 bills that we are tracking. There are 3 catalytic converter bills and 2 others. And each of these catalytic converter bills have been amended, like I said, so I will let you know of their amendments and most current status. The first one is AB 641. This was revised and re-referred to the Assembly Committee on Appropriations on April 18th. This bill would revise the definition of an automobile dismantler to include a person who maintains on their property or under their possession or control 2 or more unregistered motor vehicles that are no longer intended for or in condition for legal use on highways. And also an individual who has 6 or more used catalytic converters that have been cut from a motor vehicle. This definition, however, won't apply to vehicles or catalytic converters that are used for restoration or replacement parts, or to a junk dealer, recycler, commercial enterprise, or core recycler as defined in the business profession codes, even if they do possess 6 or more used catalytic converters that have been cut from a vehicle. The next one, or the next 2 bills, slide 5, I think, please. Yes.
Holly, we just had a quick question, I think,
sure.
from one of the advisory group members.
Thanks, Pat. Holly, Dave Kusa, ASCCA. So a commercial enterprise, would that be an ARD? Do you know?
I don't.
Should we find out? We need to find out. Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at how that's defined in the
business
bill.
Yeah.
It is. They're included in the commercial enterprise definition.
Thank you. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, these next 2, which also have been updated, deal with catalytic converter VIN marking requirements. SB 55 would prohibit a dealer or retailer from selling a vehicle equipped with a catalytic converter unless that catalytic converter has been engraved or etched with the VIN number of the vehicle to which it is attached. The newest amendment to this bill would, until January 1st, 2025, exempt this prohibition of a vehicle purchased from a dealer licensed in California who is also licensed in another state and does not have a warranty facility in California. This bill was heard 2 days ago, and it was passed and re-referred to the Committee on Appropriations. The next bill is AB 1519, and this would prohibit any person from removing or altering the VIN number that has been added to a catalytic converter, or from knowingly possessing 3 or more catalytic converters that have been altered. This bill was also re-referred to the Committee on Appropriations on the 25th of this month, and this had a recommendation to be added to the consent calendar. Kayla will update us on the next 2 bills.
Yeah, so the next...
I had a quick question before we move on from Mr. Gallo.
Good morning, Holly, Kayla. One thing we've been talking with Jack and working with a lot of law enforcement. What they're starting to do now is to switch from engraving the catalytic converters. There's companies now that actually make a label that you put on the catalytic converter that etches a serial number into it. And I would hope they would consider something like that because it makes it faster to do, easier to track, and it may be something law enforcement now they're starting to just charge the consumer for the label itself, but not the installation. But it's something you may want to consider as an amendment to the bills that would expedite how they put the serial numbers and information on the catalytic converter, and yet be able to trace it back to the vehicle it was on.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. So SB 544 has to do with the Begley-Keene Open Meeting Act. So this specific bill allows BAR to conduct strictly physical meetings or virtual meetings. However, if you are going to hold a virtual meeting, it needs to be held with a physical location where the meeting can be observed from. This bill was passed as amended and referred to Committee on Appropriations as of April 25th. The next bill, please. Thank you. Assembly Bill 1263. So this is the spot bill. This bill was amended, and I'm going to go over a summary of the amendments. So some of the amendments are as included. It would extend BAR's sunset date to January 1st of 2028. It would amend the definition of automotive repair dealer to additionally include a person who engages in the business of collecting compensation for automotive repair services that are referred or sublet to someone other than the dealer or their employees. It would authorize BAR to adopt regulations to clarify the authority to regulate storage fees charged by automotive repair dealers consistent with the provisions of the Vehicle Code and Civil Code. It would authorize BAR to establish a centralized testing network for inspecting model year 1995 and older vehicles that require a BAR 97 inspection, and beginning no earlier than January 1st, 2025, require testing using onboard diagnostic systems only on model years 1996 through 1999 vehicles. Additionally, an amendment would state that it would exempt a motor vehicle from biannual inspection if BAR adopts regulations and determines that the motor vehicle warrants temporary waiver from the biannual inspection. It would require the smog check performance report to be completed biannually rather than annually. It would provide, for purposes of the provisions of relating to the smog check program, the term qualified smog check technician refers both smog check technicians and smog check inspectors. It would provide that a fraudulent inspection additionally includes clean piping, clean gassing, clean tanking, and any other fraudulent inspection practices. And lastly, an amendment would make technical cleanup updates to the Business and Professions Code and Vehicle Code to transition the lamp and brake program to the Vehicle Safety Systems Inspections Program pursuant to Assembly Bill 471. This bill was passed on consent and re-referred to the Committees on Appropriation as of April 25th. That was a lot of amendments, a lot of information.
Yeah, it was initially introduced as a spot bill as it relates to our sunset review process that we're going through this year. The committee, Assembly Business Professions Committee, introduced it as a placeholder, as a spot bill. And as you can tell from the recent amendments that occurred on April 20th, it contains a lot more. Many of these proposals are issues that we've raised as items in our sunset review, in both our report that was published and is available on our website. We sent to the legislature on January 3rd of this year. And then we held hearings on the sunset issues that were presented in that report. There was a background paper that was published by the committees that are responsible for undertaking the sunset review or operational review of the Bureau of Automotive Repair and all other DCA regulatory entities as they come up each year. That hearing was on March 14th. I had to testify before the Assembly Business Professions Committee and the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee, always a fun time. And then that background paper, as I said, leading up to that hearing on the 14th of March, contained a lot of questions and encouraged the Bureau to offer legislative proposals in areas that it felt were necessary to fold into this bill, which we have done. And many of the amendments, actually all of the amendments, are things that were resulted from that dialogue with the two committees. That bill, as you said, passed, as my understanding, on consent out of the Assembly Business Professions Committee on the 25th?
That is correct, and it was referred to the Committee on Appropriations.
Okay. I think there's a lot of room for additional, as the committees work with various interested parties and stakeholders for additional measures to be added to the bill. Certainly by no means are they complete in the effort to address all of the issues that might be out there. These were just the provisions that we had recommended or suggested to the committees. So I'll leave it at that, just to kind of explain the process a little more thoroughly. I know we didn't get a chance to do much on the slides because when we posted the presentation, the bill was still a spot bill. Any questions or comments at this time? Yes, Mr. No, I thought you had your hand. Ms. Ayers, sorry.
I'm just wondering on that redefinition of the ARD, is that going to include programs, and I'll name a company, Repair Pal and that kind of a company? Is that what you're looking at? And how are you going to deal with out-of-state programs?
It will not name any individual entities, but we are looking at issues and experiencing issues through our consumer complaint process where businesses are set up to merely refer consumers to auto repair facilities or individuals, and they're not necessarily registered. So we want to get an expanded definition to incorporate those types of services into our automotive repair dealer definition.
But what about the out-of-state ones that do the referrals?
That's going to be a little more challenging. I think we'll have to seek some, and maybe that's something we can address with the committees as they're looking to potentially amend the bill even further to, I don't know what authority we would have to reach out to other states or businesses that are located in other states, and I do know that is happening in a couple instances. Thank you. Good question about that. I appreciate it, Nikki. And Mr. Gallo.
Just to piggyback onto what Nikki was talking about, I think the critical language in one of the amendments to the bill goes back to a comment that Mike Flanagan, one of our members, made a long time ago. If you touch a vehicle for compensation in the state, you're registered with VAR, period. And I think that has to be holding to the bill and really has to have the strongest language possible. I realize the out-of-state ones, and you're seeing more and more of that where vehicles are being ferried across the state to other states to get repairs done and then brought back to the state. I don't know how we control that, but I think going back to all of these third-party service providers that consumers are literally turning their vehicle over to them, they get taken away, get repaired, the customer gets a bill, and they're basically a repair broker, and I think those people need to be licensed.
I agree.
Thank you very much for those comments. Yes, Mr. Para.
Is that document from which you were reading available to the BAG members?
Yeah, so if you go into Ledge Info, you can read all the amendments that were made to the bill and the entire history of the bill. Okay. So you can see how it's been moving through the different committees and everything else like that, as well as the amendments.
Okay, thank you.
We'll also look to amend the presentation in that slide relating on the bill, so it's more...
Actually, slide 9 has the details.
Does it?
Yeah, they need to forward the slide.
Let me see.
So slide 8 has some of the details, but it's not comprehensive to all the amendments.
I don't know.
If you go to slide 9, it'll show more of the details that Kayla was talking about.
I'm not seeing it on my version, but we'll take a look at it. Okay. Any other comments from the Bar Advisory Group members in person here or via the WebEx? Advisory Group members attending via WebEx, any questions, comments relating to the legislation? Let's proceed, and then we'll open it up for public comment as well at the end of the whole process. Okay.
Okay, on the next slide, we list our pending regulation proposals. The first one, the smog check inspection equipment and station requirements, which is also referred to as our DAD specification update. And then our 3 AB 471 packages, the ARD registration application requirements, Vehicle Safety Systems Inspection Program and the Citation and Remedial Training Programs for ARDs. The first one is the DAD specification update on the next slide, which most of you are familiar with. This replaces the current OBD DAD specification with a more comprehensive and updated version, and allows the DAD to communicate with new vehicles that use a communication protocol that is not supported by the current generation of DADs. We are working with DCA Legal to prepare the package for approval by the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, and we have been making some very good progress since the last meeting. We are still with DCA Legal on this package, but I hope to have more updates for you at the next BAG meeting. The next one is the ARD registration application requirements. And the two main points of this package are that it defines nationally recognized and industry accepted educational certifications, and it establishes a process for the Bureau to review and approve educational certifications and recognition of those certifications on the ARD application. This package was filed with the Office of Administrative Law on March 17th, and we're currently working very closely with OAL for expected adoption on July 1st of this year. And Kayla will fill you in on the next two packages.
All right. So one of the packages that we're working on is the Vehicle Safety Systems Inspection Program. This creates a new comprehensive program that will sunset the current brake and lamp licenses 6 months after the adoption of this program. These regulations do include a manual that sets the procedures and inspection requirements. We are working with legal to submit the formal initial package to agency for approval, and as Pat mentioned, there will be a workshop after today's BAG meeting, so everybody can attend that. And then on the next slide is the citation and remedial training programs for ARDs. This regulation package expands the citation program to encompass ARD violations of the Automotive Repair Act. It sets a review panel to review the contested citations. It creates a pathways for ARDs to obtain remedial training to prevent disclosure of a citation, and establishes certification process to become a remedial training provider. We did submit this package to OAL, but we did have to withdraw it for minor edits. It is currently in a 15-day comment period. That 15-day comment period ends on May 9th, after which we will resubmit to OAL. And that's where that regulation package stands. Thank you.
Thank you both. And I just want to point out, if it wasn't stated already, I didn't hear, it is represented on your slides that the last three regulation packages on the Automotive Repair Dealer Registration Application Requirements, Vehicle Safety Systems Inspection Program, and the Citation and Remedial Training Programs for ARDs, or Automotive Repair Dealers, are all as a result of AB 471, Assembly Member Evan Lowe's bill, chaptered in 2021, that had a number of requirements of the Bureau of Automotive Repair to develop regulations to move those requirements forward. So that's where we are with all of those packages, those three AB 471 packages. Thank you. Questions from the advisory group members? I'll start here with the in-person attendees. Mr. Gallo.
Just real quick, looking at the vehicle inspection program and the bill that's moving right now, I know we're going to have a workshop on it this afternoon, but we've had a lot of discussions because we know they're phasing out the brake and lamp certification and licensing. But the concern is, if we're going to phase that out, if we're only going to be doing inspections on the salvage vehicles under this process, what happens to the consumer that wants to come in and just get a brake certification or a lamp certification, then it has nothing to do with the salvage vehicle?
They can.
How do we address that?
They can. It'll be an abbreviated inspection. It won't be a vehicle safety systems inspection. If it's just a citation as it relates to the brake or the lamp system, they can perform that inspection limited to that system on the vehicle and clear the citation, or allow the motorist to clear that citation.
Thank you.
Other questions from advisory group members? And Matthew will explain all of that at the workshop as well. Advisory group members on the WebEx, any questions or comments about any of the regulation packages? All right, let's open it up for comment from the public. Anyone in attendance here on any questions or comments relating to this presentation on legislation and regulations that we are monitoring? Public comment from any of the WebEx attendees?
Yes, there are. Hold on.
Mr. Bowie, can you identify those or open it up for public comment via the WebEx?
Bear with me just a moment. We're going to go through the spiel. We are now open for public comment via WebEx. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And our first request comes from Christina. Christina, we're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
I appreciate everybody that is on the board. However, there needs to be, I'm so sorry, guys. There needs to be, we're struggling, you know? You guys you guys mentioned the Sunset Report, and there's more shops than there are technicians. So how are we supposed to survive? And number two is in my area, there's no schools. You guys provide the schools, and you guys talk about citations all day long. But you guys license them. And there's no schools around me. And I'm a single mom, a woman in an industry trying to make it work, right? You guys need to help us too. Not just the customer is not always right. You guys see the numbers. It's time for me to be helped. And I'm not even going to talk about Opus, because they took my money as a woman, because they said I did not choose a smog shop. I did not. But they did something wrong, and you guys need to figure that out. Can we talk about that now? And if nobody is going to speak out, I will. That's it.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate your comments. I take it that you're a shop owner, or you're a technician, or both?
All the above, and 5 times, 5 shops.
5 shops.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm about to open one in Reading, so.
Okay. All right. And you are looking to get smog check citation remedial training as it relates to a citation that was received, and you're having trouble.
That's not what I said.
Then you're saying, okay, I'm reading into what you said a little bit.
What I'm saying is, how do you put pressures on my technicians? They're working so hard because the volume is too much. Okay. And there's no technicians to hire. You see it in the Sunset Report. I'm not talking about no citations. I'm saying the citations, like, don't give my technicians citations.
I thought you had received one because you said you were struggling to find I thought there was
we're called Freedom
a lack of training in the area to get the remedial training. I misunderstood.
No, we just can't. Yeah, you misunderstood. Sorry.
Okay, my apology. Okay. All right.
What I'm saying is not just Freedom Smog. I'm talking about all the technicians. They all need help. All the business owners. How are we going to do you know what I can't even tell you what I'm charging now. It's hard on us, and my technicians are working their butts off. And it's not easy because you guys are not providing technicians. And you're giving citations. Look at the sunset report. You're giving the same citations when there's a third of the shops since 2013, since the STAR program came in. You guys gave the same amount of citations, and I'm thinking, well, I mean, I have a goal. I give a goal to my technicians too on money wise. But what are you doing? You're killing us. You're killing your own job. We need help. We really need help.
All right, Christina, I'd like to follow up with you. I've got some information, I think, from your comments that'll allow me to do so with my staff after the meeting, see how we might be able to.
Yeah, because I don't need the money. I'm already not. Here's the funny thing. I'm already doing ministry over in Reading. But here's what I'm saying is, let me speak one more time. I don't need the money. These shops owners, they work hard, but I don't need to anymore. I don't. But I know, I've been honest. It's in my mission statement. You asked Tim Bowden. I've been honest, and he knows what I went through. I'm not a single mom anymore. My son turned 18. I said, you do your own thing. So I don't need it anymore. But you need to allow us to do our job, and you need to allow us to make a living.
All right. Appreciate the comments, Christine. I'll be looking forward to following up with you after the meeting.
Okay.
Either this
is Bill gonna call?
The remaining part of this week or next week.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing.
Okay.
You should not have an attorney over in, I'm not even gonna mention because I'm a respectful Christian woman. He should not be protecting and making money on small shop owners, saying that he protects us from citations when he's besties with you guys. That doesn't make sense to me. So how are we safe?
Okay, thank you. Next comment, we need to move on to our next comment that's available. Mr. Bowie, can you
Our next
identify
commenter
the individual?
is Jerry Esme. Bear with us just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. And Christina, I'll make sure I get you contact information.
And please, we're trying to limit comments to the presentation that was just given on legislation and regulations. There will be an opportunity to give public comment on anything else that's not on the agenda later in the meeting. Mr. Esme, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I would just add a question on the ARD requirements. So you're saying on the new application, they either have to have recognizable certification from a nationally recognized facility like ASE, or they have to have automotive technology or something. What's going to happen to test-only owners?
It's not a requirement. It's not a requirement, Jerry. It is actually an ability for ARDs to point out training that they've received. So that the thought is, and there'll be a presentation later on this in the agenda. It is actually the auto shop locator update. The vision is, I think the legislator who introduced the bill, Mr. Lowe, had a vision that if we allow ARDs to present this information, it can be presented by the Bureau on a public-facing website that allows consumers to shop for various automotive repairs services and look at training and education that has been received by those ARDs. So it's an option. It is not a requirement.
Okay, that clears it up. I read it. I kind of read that into it, that it might be optional. I was just curious that it wouldn't have any effect on approval of their application.
Not at all. Not at all. If someone has not received ASC, ICAR training, or a couple of ones that come to mind, ICAR in the collision repair world, yeah, there's nothing that holds us up or holds that application or holds the Bureau up from reviewing and approving that application. Not at all.
Okay. Could I ask one more question? Is that all right?
You certainly can.
I was the ARD citation program. I've been kind of following that, what's going on, but it's still in the working stage, right? You haven't said, I remember at one time it was only going to be a licensed attorney could do the training. Is that still, am I misunderstanding that?
That's the way the regulation is set up, yes.
How are they going to be able to answer automotive technical questions when that's fine with me. I don't want to do it. Don't get me wrong. That's not my, I'm going to retire soon. But I'm just thinking, how are they going to be able to write that program and give 8 hours to guys that when they're talking about a technicality on automatic transmission regulations, air conditioning regulations that they may have violated, that they don't know the technical aspect?
The remedial training is not for anything technical or mechanical. It is on laws and regulations, which attorneys are obviously trained and licensed to advise and instruct on. So that's why it was focused on attorneys, because it is a remedial training program focused on compliance with bar laws and regulations.
Okay.
Not technical in nature.
Okay.
It's not like smog check. Smog check is very technical, as you know, and you are a trainer on smog check. This is laws and regulations training.
I understand that. I still wonder what these guys are going to be charging as attorneys. Are they going to charge attorney rates, or is this going to be something that bar is going to have the training and they're just going to administer it? But that's, like I said, it doesn't really affect me personally. I'm just worried about the industry.
I understand. I don't know the rates. We haven't even received an application. We haven't even had the regulations adopted to even accept applications.
All right. So
as soon as we have that information, we'll be posting that, and any certified trainers, remedial trainers on laws and regulations will be available, because anyone who is cited under the Business Professions Code violation for having violated under this new regulation package, or any of the regulations that have been that are on the books relating to those Business Professions Code statutes, will need to undertake that training. We're going to go very gently into those waters. I will assure you, we're not necessarily looking to start issuing citations on day one of this program, but there are some issues that we do feel need to be addressed, and there has not been a mechanism to address those short of just educating, which we do all the time on the one end of the spectrum, or filing an accusation to revoke the license. In some cases, in many cases, that's not the appropriate way to handle it. So sometimes a citation might be necessary to get to raise the ante or raise the attention of the automotive repair dealer.
I agree with you. That is true. It's been a problem for a lot of years. Okay. Thank you very much. It's good to talk to you.
Good to see you or hear you, Jerry.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Full disclosure, Jerry was a program representative in one of our field offices, I believe the Fresno field office, and before retiring and moving on to some training and other ventures outside the state government. Other comments on the legislation and regulations update? Mr. Bowie, any other public comments?
There are no other comments on agenda item 2, Chief Dre.
All right, thank you very much. We will close this agenda item out, and we will look forward to seeing you both in July at our next advisory group meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll update that one slide. It is slide 8. Mr. Gallo and I were conferring, and it's still listed as a spot bill. Obviously, that had to occur when we posted the presentation 10 days or more ago. So we'll update it with AB 1263 to contain the latest amendments. All right, our next agenda item is on licensing customer service update, an update from our licensing program manager, Darren Dumas. Hello, Darren. And welcome.
What high tech and low tech here. Bear with me. This is my first in-person presentation in quite some time.
Just make sure there's a button on the mic. If it's not lit as green, you'll need to turn that on.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, good morning. Yes, my name is Darren Dumas. I'm the licensing manager at BAR headquarters. New kid on the block here. I've been here for just about a year, just over a year now. So taking over for my predecessor who was there for a very long time. I'm sure most of the folks here know who that was. So very big program, big shoes to fill. So my topic today is about customer service because this is a huge aspect to licensing. Those of you that know we are the front door to the Bureau of Automotive Repair. We receive the licenses. We make sure that we comply with all of our legislative and statutory requirements to make sure that shops and technicians are in compliance and to protect people of the state of California and the consumers. And it's a big responsibility. With that, as you heard previously, there's a lot of changes that are coming legislatively, but we are also looking at our program and how we can improve our interface with the public and with our applicants and licensees. Our customers, we of course have the applicants, and then the licensees and the general public. The applicants, they go through our program. Unfortunately, we are still a paper-driven program, and a lot of old technologies that we are working very hard to try to modernize. We are very aware of some of the frustrations that our applicants have. We talk to them daily. We help them as best we can. You know, so we do know the value of customer service in regards to helping the industry. And then, of course, the licensees themselves, making sure that they stay in compliance as far as renewals, renewal fees, making sure that the field inspections go well. You know, do our part from what our office can do to ensure this to be as seamless as possible within the within the technology and the constraints that we have. So part of what we have put into place is staffing. When I took over, there was a lot of opportunity to refresh our work environment for the staff, to take a look at processes and procedures, and there were a lot of vacancies. It has taken me pretty much this whole year to get us to a point where we were fully staffed. Unfortunately, we have one vacancy, but for a minute we were fully staffed, and that was a big achievement, and we're very happy to do that. We have some very quality individuals that have been promoted into higher positions where their value to the industry and to our department is increased. So very happy that we have the right people in the right places, and we have just recently hired a number of new staff who are very highly qualified. The learning curve on them is incredible. They pick things up very quickly, and they've assumed their roles very well. And we see that in our production. Because of the fact that we get so many applications, hundreds per week that come in, sometimes per day, and we can turn around and get these things processed. You can look at the handout regarding our stats, but that's last year's stats. What we're doing now, I'm measuring weekly in our meetings. I do measurements on how many we receive, how many we process, how many are in different phases of the processing. And at least right now, for the last few months, we've been able to get us down to being able to process applications in less than a week, at best 1 to 2 days. That's now under regulation. We have an obligation to, within 14 days, to notify the applicant of any deficiencies or to tell them that it's okay to, to move forward with. We're doing that in a day or two, depending on the app type and the situation. We're moving these things very quickly. And my staff is, again, considering we're paper-driven, we're still doing the best we can with what we have, but I'm happy to say that the improvements really show themselves in our results. So these are being measured every day and every week, and I'm hoping that our next annual report will show those improvements as well. The training program that we have for staff, we took a hard look at current processes and procedures and went through a very good analysis about how we can improve them, how we can streamline them while still keeping our obligation to following our statutory requirements regarding licensing approvals. So we've made vast improvements in that, which has really tightened up the timelines for processing and reduced the number of errors. So we definitely made big improvements in that. We still have a ways to go, but please understand we take customer service very, very seriously. And I know for me, that's the culture that I wanted to create the minute I walked into that unit, and I think we're doing our part. So there's a number of slides here you can see up here. This is, again, fiscal year 21-22. I'm curious to see how the new fiscal year is going to look because I'm seeing some pretty impressive numbers on our end. Over 42,000 maintaining all those licenses, and then, of course, 4,000 initial applications and almost 4,000 renewal licenses. That's a lot for the whole state of California for a unit that has about 20 positions. So that we're managing all of that. So again, we're trying to do the best we can with what we have, but I think we got our A game going on currently with more opportunity for improvement. That's on the business registration side. Of personal licensing, maintaining almost 21,000 inspectors, repair technicians, brake adjusters, lamp adjusters, et cetera. That's a pretty significant number. I think the automotive industry has really grown. At least from what I can read from the field, that a lot of people are keeping their cars longer and they're taking them to shops to get repaired because the cost of new vehicles has gone up considerably. So I have friends that work in the industry and they tell me all the time how people come in and it's normal to see a car that needs over $5,000 to $8,000 worth of repairs, where normally somebody would just get rid of the car. So, that of course puts the demand on the shops to have more staff, more technicians, which means more people want to get licensed. So I think we're seeing that spike in our department. I'm theorizing, but that's kind of what I see. So we want to make sure on the customer service side that we help those folks to become technicians, help the folks that want to open the shops and get into this lucrative industry. We're going to do what we can. We're trying to improve our communications. We are doing some internal shifting regarding staff to have some qualified staff to take more of an active role in our outreach programs and our communications with the industry. We do have a corporate LLC liaison that works directly with our big corporate LLC entities, and we're continuing in that direction to have the quality staff that have the knowledge that have been in licensing for a long time to take more of an active role in this communication process so that the industry knows what they're facing, what they're dealing with, what the things they need to do to be licensed and productive and in compliance with legal requirements. So can we change the slide? Thank you. So we are a higher volume production unit. just look at this. Licensing received and responded to over 25,000 emails during the 21-22 fiscal year. That also includes emails received directly and our general email. That general email inbox is constantly full, and I have a dedicated number of staff that work that email inbox. You know, we try to, I know our requirement is within 24 hours, but we try to respond within the hour if we can. I mean, we really try to get on these things quickly, and if somebody doesn't know, they reach out and they ask questions to try to learn, because we want to make sure we're giving the best and most accurate information. We don't want the consumer, applicant, or public to have to ask additional questions based on an information that we provide. We want them to have all their questions answered up front, so that way they're happy, and it lowers our volume as well. So, but that is an improvement that we made. Again, training of staff to be able to handle that, and to be able to handle a high volume of emails that are coming in, as well as the phone calls. I know phone calls is an issue. I mean, I'll be honest, we get the complaints too about people saying I can't get through to anybody in licensing, a difficult time with that. My staff are on the phones all day, but keep in mind they are mitigating that with processing the applications. So the more phone calls they're talking on the phone, helping customers on the phone, they're not processing applications. So where we try to balance that, of course, is that we do have more staff that are dedicated to just answering phone calls. We even have some additional resources that we borrowed from within BAR to help us answer some of these volume of calls, at least provide basic information like what's the status of my application. That's the number one question we get. So we are trying what we can do to address the number of phone calls coming in. And then, of course, you know, like I mentioned earlier, we do have a resource that is specifically dedicated to corporate LLC entities, things like that. So we're trying to make more of this personalized approach to our customer service, which I think is really important. Next slide, please. So our processing times, this is again 21-22. This was probably at the beginning of my term working there, so I think we're going to see much better numbers in the next reporting. But you can see right now, average 25 days for complete applications, 48 days for incomplete applications. Obviously, we can't help incomplete applications. We try to communicate with the licensee if the application is incomplete, but we have a 1-year wait on those. That, you know, if we don't hear anything for a year, then we abandon that application. So, you know, we try to do what we can, but we can't help if they make mistakes on their application. But we try to educate them as best we can. We, again, unfortunately, with the technology we have, you know, we still deal with deficiency letters and snail mail and all that stuff, but we do have now email addresses on the applications, so we could reach out by email. We can, you know, there's phones, things like that. So we try to make it as understandable as possible for the applicant so that they don't make those mistakes. But you can put all the FAQs and put all the instructions out there and have, you know, 2-3 pages of instructions on an application. You're still going to have an industry that just wants to get it in and get it processed, and they don't always pay attention to the instructions. So even with all of that, we do the best we can, but we still end up having to, you know, reach out to the applicant and say, you know, you're missing this or that, or your documentation isn't right, or, you know, whatever. So we try our best to help them to be able to satisfy whatever deficiencies they might have so we can get that processed. As far as our complete applications, this average 25 days. This is also taking into consideration any of them that go into, that need further review. It's a little more complex where it needs more time to review. And then, of course, it has to go to a field inspection where they have to come out and inspect before everything can finalize and go through. So there's all that. But as far as the paper processing part, like I mentioned earlier, we've made so many vast improvements in staffing and procedures that now we're averaging 1 to 2 days. So that's and that's been pretty consistent now every week. We've been reporting it in our weekly staff meetings, and we use the same matrix to measure it, and right now it's pretty consistent. So I'm always cringe to say 1 to 2 days just because it sounds really amazingly fast, but I like to just comfortably say we're getting these things turned around in less than a week. As far as our part goes and licensing, everything beyond that is outside of our control. But for what we do, I think we're doing pretty well to get these turned around as fast as we can. STAR certifications, of course, that varies a little bit. That's a certification program, but that's still 19 days for a complete app, 45 days for incomplete. They run into similar kind of things as far as instructions, people not process or completing applications correctly, STAR scores that, they have to basically, a lot of shops will apply at the same time they're within a close proximity to when they first get their ARD. But there has to be a whole quarter's worth of scores that go into the system for them to be evaluated for STAR. So there's always that little kind of window period there where we tell them, you can't apply for STAR, you're not ready yet. And then as soon as they get a letter, they send another application in. So if it's closed, like within a week, we may hold that application just to see the new scores are going to come out in a week. So let's hold it for that. But we really don't want to get too much into the business of holding applications because that can create a backlog on our part. But we do try, again, this is me emphasizing this customer service element. We try to accommodate the best we can within the limitations that we have, but we try to really work with a lot of these applicants, both on the licensing side as well as the STAR certification, to get them where they need to be. And there's some contact information on there. I think we also have it in the handouts as well, but it's in the slide. We have this email licensing, that's that general inbox, again, has multiple staff members that monitor that, and then we have our standard mail, the address. When it comes to emails, I'm really pushing for my processors and analysts to, when they reach out, to really make sure that they include their contact information. It's better if people, if they have a name and an email address and a phone number, to reach out to that processor or that analyst that they're working with and have that line of communication directly with them than the standard email or the general phone line. That one-to-one, I think, relationship is really important for making sure that it establishes a good long-term relationship with that applicant. That the applicant or licensee down the road, they have another question, they have somebody they can talk to and to get the information that they need. So it's still trying to build that customer support interface that I really think is needed right now. We are also tasked by regulation and statute to provide priority status for military veterans, veteran spouses, and asylees, and we monitor that very heavily. We track from the time we receive it to every step in the process until it is finalized. We track every part of that to make sure we know at any point where this application is at. So that is a big priority. All my staff know that. If they see that box is checked for any of those special considerations, there's a marker that goes right on it that says priority, and there's an email track. The supervisor that I have, she tracks this. Big priority put on that. So I think we're meeting that mandate pretty well. We self-audit, and I think definitely we're making sure, especially with the military, the way it is right now. I'm former military, my son is in the military. We know that there's a lot of servicemen and women coming out of the service, and they're looking for trades to get into. So there's a huge influx. Then, of course, we have a lot of asylees and people coming from other countries that are also, they need to work, and so they're coming through this program. So that's what kind of prompted this need for this priority process. So we have added that in there, and I'm very happy to say that we're meeting that mandate very well. It's a big thing for us to do. So And then down at the bottom, you can see where I made comments here. Training procedures are analyzed, streamlined, updated, and improved, enabling new staff to onboard, train, and become productive quickly. And I can happily say that because we've hired a number of staff just in the last few months, and they're already fully productive, and some of them are in senior technician positions, and they are operating at that level already. So I think we've done very well on that. Next slide, please. So some of the challenges and improvements. So these are the things when I walked through the door in licensing that I quickly realized, and we have been tackling this whole time as a team to try to improve. High staff turnover. High staff turnover, I know, is a statewide issue everywhere. At least for us, the staff that I have, they promote out, they don't just leave. So that's always good when you have staff that promote. That means they're developing and growing. But the nice part is I was able to see a lot of my staff promote within the unit. So we've been able to retain a considerable amount of program knowledge within our more senior staff who didn't leave. They stayed within licensing, and they promoted into analyst positions and senior analyst positions. So that's a very valuable resource, especially for me as a new manager, to have that information there that I can lean on if I have questions about things, but also for the industry to improve the customer service. But let's face it, it's annoying when you have somebody who's brand new and they're like, I don't know, let me find out, and then they may or may not get back to you. I don't want that. So we have senior staff there that are tenured, that have been here long enough, that know they've been through so many different changes in licensing, but they have that historical knowledge to be able to give their education to not only the industry, but to those of us who are new in the department as well. We had processing was way too slow when I started. That turnaround time was horrible. Now I know COVID created a lot of chaos for us. So we went from an office environment to a remote environment, and with paper applications, that creates all kinds of challenges. So we did the best we could with scanning applications, making them PDF versions where we could then process them remotely, but that affected processing time dramatically. There were some challenges staying within at least that 14-day window that were required to meet, but again, through this constant review of our processes and streamlining and other improvements we've made, we've been able to tighten that up. And now all our processors are in office 5 days a week. There are no remote working processors. So that also does help, at least until we can do away with paper applications. But we had a high incoming call volume, 18,000 per year, with not enough staff to manage those calls. So that created a lot of dropped calls, a lot of unanswered questions, and in response, because there were a lot of vacancies when I first started. So there was a period where it was really understaffed, and of course that affected our ability to provide that quality customer service that we need to provide. And then of course the outdated software systems, a lot of our processes requiring manual review, submission, data entry, paper applications. So all this stuff just adds up to a very slow moving process. And we know that, I know that, and of course, the frustrations we get from the industry, it doesn't go unheard. We completely understand. Nobody likes to work harder. We all like to work smarter. So even those of us in the office processing everything, we like our jobs to be more efficient and easier as well. So the frustrations that are felt in the field, we feel it in our own work as well. So next slide, please. So we did implement telework policies and procedures. So we did have staff that were working from home. At one point, everybody was working from home. And we tried to everybody got laptops. We tried to put a functionality that supported being able to be in the office or at home. And of course, the scanning of applications, things like that, so that we tried to make it, I can't say as seamless as possible, but at least the constraints with that kind of environment brings, we tried to mitigate that as much as we could with what we had. And kudos to my staff being able to do that, but also kudos to the industry for being patient with us during these times of adaptability, trying to accommodate as best we can. But with that said, one of the biggest things that I'm really excited about is this rollout of the Enforcement Licensing Modernization Project, or ELM, that started a number of years ago, and now we are kind of in this final stages of it. We are currently testing the system that we have, but I don't want to go too far into it. I think there's somebody else in this agenda that's going to talk about that, but we on our side are very excited about this. Eliminating paper applications, automatic processing, it'll automatically tell somebody they're deficient instead of waiting for a deficiency letter. So there's so many improvements to this. And of course, us on this office side, we're very excited about that. And then of course, you heard a little bit about the brake and lamp, AB 107, how that's going to impact that. So currently I have one analyst that processes all the brake and lamp certificate books, so that will change. So again, leaner, more efficient, better functioning, that's the root of customer service right there. So, that's a big push that we're fully behind, and we're trying to do what we can to make this come into play to benefit everybody. And then the high applications and call volumes, they challenged our program's ability to provide the service. So we talked about that, more staffing. We are making some modernizations to our phone system that's going to help. Currently, everybody has desk phones, but we're trying to implement something in place where we'll be able to do phone calls through our computers as well, in replacement of the desk phones. So that way, whether somebody's in a home environment or an office environment, they don't have to use their cell phones. Everything will work off the computer. It'll have voicemail capability, things like that. So we're trying to address the call volume issue to make that better as well. Next slide, please. I'm not going through everything. So there's my contact information. A lot of folks don't even know who I am yet.
Lucky.
Now they do.
Now you do.
Look, I am in the office every day. You are welcome to call me, email me. Email is preferred because if I don't know the answer, I like to have the email to at least reference it, and I will find out and get back to you. I can definitely make that promise to you. I will find out. I will get back to you and try to answer your questions. And the phone works, but I'm always sometimes out in the office, talking to my team, things like that. So I may not always be sitting at my desk, but definitely if you send an email, I'll get it and I'll respond to it.
Thank you, Darren. I really appreciate the thoroughness of your presentation. Darren sometimes fills in for one of our executive leadership teams on a weekly basis, and he always has the most thorough presentations, as you have now witnessed. And he certainly cares, and I appreciate that. He referenced a former manager whose shoes he's filling, Frenchie Mayuba, who retired a year or two ago. You've done a great job stepping into those shoes, so thank you, Darren. Let's go with questions, comments from the advisory group members. I'll start this way again, Mr. Gallo.
Darren, thank you very much for your presentation. I think one of the most common calls I get from our members, especially franchisees, is the meter's running for them, and they're trying to get their application, they're getting everything. And so the real question I have is, once everything is done, how quickly is that ARD information being communicated now, since you've taken over, to them? And is there a way that they can scan their ARD license and email it to them so they can at least get their system programmed and then wait for the physical one to show up? I guess it's really several questions, but that's the real issue that I commonly face, and I had someone contact you recently. Thank you, Zach, for the information to get a hold of Darren, because that was one of the things that was just, they were ready to go, and where do we stand? And
absolutely. We deal with several different components on that, and I completely understand that frustration. I mean, somebody takes out $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in loans just to get a sign on the door. not counting all the technology and equipment and staffing and things like that. They're paying on that. So every day that goes by, it's sitting in a process to get a license. They can't do business.
Right.
So I completely understand that. And I've had some of those phone calls too, where people are almost crying on the phone, you know, like that, the former, like Christine, I think her name was, somebody like that, very passionate and emotional. You know, I work to pay my bills too. I get it. If I had to go without paying, I'd probably be crying too. So, you know, I feel for that. Everybody in my department is sympathetic to that. There are some things in our control, some things out of our control. When something goes into the system, when it's finalized, it gets sent to, you know, to process. It takes 24 hours to activate. But as far as getting that ARD number, there's been numerous times somebody calls for the status of their application, and we'll just tell them, yeah, we submitted it. It's going to take you a week or so to get the actual, you know, the wall license. But in the meantime, this is your ARD number. So we can give them the information we can. Because we license so many people per day, being able to personally reach out to each one of them to provide that information would put such a huge drain on our ability to maintain our 1 to 2 day processing time that, you know, but I'm hopeful with the modernization program that they will have at least a digital copy of the certificate right away that they'll be able to use. I don't want to overspeak myself on that, but that is kind of a hope in this program, that as we modernize and digitalize, that we don't have to wait so long for these slower processes to take place. But we can do what we can on our end. If somebody contacts us and wants to know, we find out, yeah, your application was approved, this is your ARD number, we can do that.
Yeah, one of the things, just as a follow-up, and it's worked a couple of times, is when I tell them to go to the locator app and put their business information in there, and lo and behold, there's the ARD number, and that's working pretty well too.
Absolutely, that's a much faster kind of way. And if they could do it on their end, that's less call volume on our side, more processing power that we have to keep going. So certainly we're willing to work with anybody that's concerned about that, but we can't push parts of the process that really kind of go outside our hand. We use a third-party company to even issue the wall licenses and the badges and stuff, so they have their workload and processing time. We can request that a rush order gets made, but again, if we're doing that for everybody, it's never going to work right. So, but hopefully with modernization, that's a short-term problem that will go away.
Sure, thank you. Ms. Harris.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One is, how are you doing with working with the third party of getting those badges out? Is anybody on the staff now watching to make sure that the badge gets out to the person? I know
we have a point of contact with that vendor, and I have a senior analyst who has a great relationship with this person and is in communication all the time with them. So, you know, if somebody says they didn't get their license, we can reach out, get them a reprint, resend it to them. He communicates daily with her on email because I get CC'd on all of it all the time. So we do have a good relationship with them. Obviously, they work for us, but they're not part of us, so, you know.
Well, I know in the recent past, they've been quite behind, like almost 6 months behind.
Sometimes it's been a little challenging, and they're the same vendor that also processes licensing for another board that I used to work with, and so it's the same problems there too. So I don't want to be critical of our vendor, but just know that there are some things that are outside of our control, but the best we can do is have a good communication line with them and follow up with them as best we can and make sure that, you know, that they're doing their part, and definitely try to influence as best we can.
Okay, and I'm going to bring up another slight topic, and maybe Dave Kusa can help me on this. Do you think it's time now, because we're looking at so many safety issues with vehicles and things like that, that maybe the bar should start looking at registering LSID technicians or shops? And Dave, are you an LSID?
I am.
Yeah. And that is a much more sophisticated shop or technician, and they have to have higher qualifications than anybody. The bar might want to have at least a listing of who those people are, or track it. And I just, because now you're finally getting under control some of the things that weren't in control. that it might be a good idea at this point in time for them to know who has those licenses and where they are.
I would agree. I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I missed it. Listing of what license? Which?
it's an LSID.
LSID, okay.
Locksmith identification.
Okay.
Blacksmith identification for shops, and it has a lot to do with safety and equipment
Okay.
and things like that. I think it's really important to start thinking about that.
All right.
The LSID, locksmith identification, is if to obtain security coding information for security-related devices on the vehicle. So keys would be the easiest one, but there's a lot of things that are part of the onboard computer's security system that if you want to be able to program those systems, there's a process to get approved, to get access, to the manufacturer's sites. It's in, I could talk for days on it, but it's a process to prevent vehicle theft and that kind of thing. So it's a big deal. Background checking and so on and so forth.
Background checking, bonding,
Yeah.
special insurance, above and beyond
Yeah.
just being a technician.
I got it. Thank you. Let's move, thank you for the comment. Let me go here first because I did see Jack early, and then I'll get back to Matthew. Sorry.
Hi, Jack Moladano. Thank you, Darren, for the update. On I don't know if we can go back to page 7. I have some comments and just observations because it looks like you guys meet on a weekly basis. But on page 7, you talk about, is it 7? Yeah, the 14 days of receipt. See, deficiency notices for incomplete applications are being sent to applicants within 14 days of receipt. So for the person applying right now currently, they fill out the application, they submit their $200, and it's sent to the Department of Consumer Affairs, their cashier department. It sits there for a while, okay? 7, 10 days, I've heard 2 weeks. That's part of the delay. So that's one thing you need to look at, okay? Because I know they're waiting for the check to clear. I mean, I don't know. You can do credit cards now, but I mean, that should be fixed there. That's number one. I think that should be addressed. Then it gets kicked over to you, okay? To your place, right? You have 14 days to send out a deficiency notice. If the deficiency could be as simple as someone forgot to put their seller's permit number down, right? And that's a deficiency. Instead of calling them up or sending an email, you send after 14 days, you send mail. Well, that can take another 7 to 10 days. So you see where we're at now. We're like at 40 days now, right? And then you send the deficiency. By the time they get it and respond back to you, there's another 7 days or whatever. There are areas here, there are log jams. And I know you're working on them. I appreciate that. But when you're these are areas where I think the ELM will definitely help because you can get on. But there is a problem with the delays because I get those calls from members. Hey, I can't get licensed. I've sent this application 45 days ago. What's the problem? So I'm just pointing out some areas that I think can be improved and should be improved with, the technology we have these days. And I understand you've mentioned that, we're outdated and you're using paper, but man, I mean, sending stuff in snail mail is, in this day and age, should not continue to happen. I mean, phone calls, emails, they should happen quickly. So anyway, those are my comments and observations. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren, for the presentation. I had a quick comment regarding the phone calls.
Sure.
So I just did some quick math. So 18,000 calls a year. I don't know how many days you guys work. It's around 250, I assume. Is that the working days? So that's about 70 calls a day, right? Do you guys track those calls? Have you ever tracked the nature of the calls just to determine what they are? So if there's potential, you could put additional information like on the website or somewhere to try to maybe reduce the number of calls. If you haven't done that, I would suggest that'd be a good idea. I assume it's probably people calling, hey, where's my
calls are that way, but I didn't do an in-depth study of that, but that is, now that our processing time has improved so well, a number of applications we have sitting waiting to be processed are down so low that staff now have more time that we could look into these kind of things. And I would like to do that. That is something I actually just talked to somebody about the other day, about how, we're getting so many calls, but let's do just a basic grid of what kind of call is it?
Track 100 calls, you could probably.
Is it a direct call or is it coming through the main line and transferred? So, that's definitely a study I would like to know so that we can, like you've mentioned, improve our FAQs or improve the information that goes out.
Sure.
You know, but again, in my experience, you could have all kinds of FAQs and instructions, things like that. People tend to not read them. They,
Sure.
You know, and I get it. People like talking to a person on the phone. I'm the same way. I'm the guy that's hit 0 all the time to get to the operator because I don't want to go through option 1, 2, 3, 4. So, but that, thank you for that because that kind of fits in line with what I'm already thinking. So.
All right. Let's go to advisory group members who are attending via the WebEx. Any comments or questions there? Hearing none, let's ask if there are any public comments relative to this presentation. I didn't call on you yet, but I'm looking at you.
Come on down.
Bud Rice, please join us. He's very good.
Thank you, Chief. Hey, Darren, very nice to meet you. Following up on what Jack had said a minute ago, my experience has been is people far and away respond to text messaging faster than almost anything else. So if you guys had the ability to reach out through text and say, during the application process, we noticed a deficiency and boop, 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 they could move on that much faster, especially if you provided a link where they could jump to it and then fix whatever it is they need to fix. And then you could even alert them that it's all been approved and everything's fine. But text, believe me, text messaging is much, much faster.
Agreed. Thank you. Bud Rice from Quality Tune-Up. Moderator, are there any public comments via the WebEx?
We are now accepting public comment on the licensing customer update. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand. We will call on people in the order we have requests. And our first request comes from Christina. Christina, we're going to give you an opportunity to unmute your microphone.
I already said what I needed to say. Help us too. Help us.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And we're going to wait just a couple more seconds to see if we have a request for comment, but that should be it.
All right, thank you, moderator. I think that's it, unless we did get another comment? No?
That's it. Let's
Okay.
continue.
All right. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate the presentation. Thank you for the feedback and comments from the advisory group members and the public on this topic. And maybe at some point down the road, we'll have you come back for an update on this continuing effort to improve our customer service in this particular program as it relates to licensing, because it is so critical. Thank you. Great job. All right, our next presentation is, I'm going to try and move this along, translating bar licensure examinations. Heidi Lintzer from the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Professional Examination Services, also known as OPS, and you have a couple of others with you, which please introduce yourselves. Welcome, Heidi and team.
Good morning. I'm Heidi Lintzer, the Chief of the Office of Professional Examination Services. I'd like to introduce Amy Welsh-Gandy and Karen Okasich, who are Research Data Supervisors at OPES. Amy and Karen are knowledgeable about examination translation processes that we're going to be talking about today. And also Karen supervises the development of your bar examinations. And we're really happy to provide a presentation on translating examinations. And Amy is currently working on translating a new examination for the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. So she brings that experience here. So here are the topics I'm going to be covering, giving you a little overview of OPS. We haven't been to your meeting for a long, long time. I will just tell you that I'll date myself by saying when I first started here at Department of Consumer Affairs in our office, which was called OER back then, but my very first program I worked on was the beginning of the smog technician examination. So that'll date me. And it was I was pretty new, and it was my job to develop an examination for something that there were no licensees yet. So we had to start from scratch and determine what this profession was and what the people do. And so I was sort of thrown into that, and so I do remember those days. So we are here to talk about translating examinations. Why should we translate them? Considerations for deciding whether they need to be translated or should we translate them. Translating versus adapting examinations. I'm going to talk about the difference between those two things. Requirements for adapting examinations and unintended consequences of translating or adapting examinations, and then give you some recommendations. Next slide. So in case you aren't familiar with OPES, I'm going to give you a brief overview of who we are and what we do. We provide 3 types of licensing examination services to DCA boards, bureaus, and committees. The first type of service that we provide is developing California licensing exams and evaluating national exams for use in California. The second type of service we provide is recommendations, like we are today, to boards on issues related to licensing examinations, such as examination formats, examination wait times, translating exams, and those type of things. We provide consultation to all of DCA's programs, whether or not they use our other services for developing their examinations or not. And we make these recommendations based on laws, regulations, research. We have professional guidelines and technical standards in the testing industry that we use to make our decisions. The third type of service we provide is managing DCA's computer-based testing contract. So we manage the contract that administers your examinations. That's called OPS Integrated Examination Service Program. We work with the boards and bureaus to oversee their exam administration. And the IESP staff are the liaison between the examination vendor, which is currently PSI, and DCA programs. And we assist, IESP assists with accommodating candidates with disabilities, procedures for candidates who use translators, and they also manage examination misconduct and exam subversion issues. Next slide. So, you've asked us, Patrick asked us to come here and talk about translating examinations. I know it came up in your sunset review. So why should we translate examinations? The purpose of translating is often tied to fairness. It's a fundamental validity issue in the use of tests. At OPS, we are always mindful of the diversity of our population and how it might impact our licensure examinations. Translating examinations can provide consideration to candidates whose first language is not English. For some professions, speaking English may not be job-related. So, for example, hairstylists. Amy is working with the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology to translate the hairstylist examination. It's not an essential skill to speak English to cut someone's hair, so therefore that board has been translating their exams for many, many years. So taking the examination in English may be an unnecessary barrier to licensure. We've been focusing on unnecessary barriers for the last 10 years or so at DCA, and making sure that our exams only test on things that candidates need to know to be licensed and not put up unnecessary hurdles for them to become licensed. So a candidate who does not speak English may not be able to demonstrate that they're qualified due to the language barrier. They may have the knowledge and skills, but they may not be able to pass the test because they can't understand the test questions. So this could potentially impact the validity of the examination if people who are qualified to do the work cannot pass the examination due to an extraneous variable. So in our industry, we try to eliminate extraneous variables that might impact someone not being able to get a license. Next slide. So these are the considerations for deciding to translate examinations, considerations that we use. So We may have data from various sources indicating that translation might be warranted. These data could be from a survey or from schools indicating that there are many English language learner students in your profession. As noted in your meeting materials, there are California government code sections related to translating government information in general. And those codes indicate that 5% is considered a substantial number. In our experience at OPES, so let me go back to that. What it means is if 5% of your population is in need of services in other languages, you're obligated to provide them. In our experience at OPES, there are typically requests from stakeholders, candidates, that the examination be translated. However, the process is not as straightforward as it may seem. Translating examinations requires bilingual subject matter experts, licensees who speak English and Spanish, for example, if we're talking about Spanish. In addition, we need to consider whether the essential resources used for the examination are accessible or translatable. So for BAR, that might mean your reference manuals, your equipment codes, would those be able to be translated? The diagrams in the examination would need to be translated. Decisions would need to be made about whether technical terms would be translated or remain in English. Finally, we would need to have additional workshops, and BAR would need to identify and pay additional subject matter experts. Next slide. So now I'd like to further explain the concept of adapting examinations. So to adapt an examination, translation is only the first step in the process. The most straightforward method for translating the examination is to use an outside vendor proven to produce accurate translations. However, the examination must then be reviewed by bilingual subject matter experts to ensure that it makes sense for the industry and for the culture that you're translating it, that you expect to be reading the examination. This basic process is appropriate for some examinations. This is what we're using for barbering and cosmetology examinations. And that works best for Latin-based languages that are similar to English, such as Spanish. However, we have some examinations at DCA that are more complex and languages that are not Latin-based. So, for example, the acupuncture examination. We translate that examination into Chinese and Korean, right? Mm-hmm. Chinese and Korean, I'm Korean. That is a little more complicated. First of all, the acupuncture examination is more complicated than the hairstylist examination. So the terms are more complicated, the questions are longer. And the translation from English to Chinese, Chinese has characters, English, that represent multiple ideas and not just word for word. So it's not a word for word translation. So this adaptation process is required when we have that type of situation. Regardless of method, problems arise when we try to translate technical words or equipment. There are often words that do not translate directly into other languages. And candidates often know these words in English. So if they've learned the word in English, we have to be careful when we're asking a test question to make sure to use the word the way they've learned it. So, for example, dynamometer, which I remember from doing with the smog technician. So I would expect that that word would have to stay in English. There's probably not a Spanish word for dynamometer. So you can hopefully understand the process is we would have to go through the questions, decide which of these words would need to be in English, because that's the way people have learned them, or there are only English words, there aren't words in other languages, which would be in Spanish, and still make sure that the question translates properly what we're asking. So that's why the need for subject matter experts. There may also be linguistic and cultural differences between different groups. Our testing standards and guidelines that we follow, for example, it's called the Standards for Educational and Psychological Testing, emphasize that these differences must be considered. So we have to make sure that the translated words do not have significantly different meanings in another culture or another language. Next slide. So, talking about adapting examinations. Another testing standard is called the Guidelines for Translating and Adapting Tests, and it's published by the International Testing Council, outlines the process and the evaluation procedures for adapting examinations. So this is the process. It requires multiple groups of bilingual SMEs requires translating individual items and then having native speakers of a language evaluate these items, requires bilingual SMEs to participate in passing score determination. A lot of what we do is based on the difficulty of a test item. A test item may appear more difficult when it's translated into another language. To that culture, it may look different to them, and it may be more difficult than it is in English, or alternatively, it could be easier. So there's those considerations. So this is a process we use to adapt the acupuncture examination into Chinese and Korean. But failure to adhere to these standards, guidelines, and procedures can lead to offering examinations that's not equivalent in content, difficulty, reliability, and validity, which are all things that we measure, and it may result in inaccurate licensing decisions. So OPS works with clients to determine the appropriate translation and adaptation process. It may be a hybrid of these, but we're just giving you the basics of like the bare minimum, and then the Cadillac model for you guys is the adaptation where we translate and retranslate, and it takes a lot of SME time and money. So depending on your particular need, OPS works with programs to determine the process that works best for them. Next slide. Another consideration of translating or adapting examinations is that there can be unintended consequences. Candidates may complain that the examination was not translated correctly or was not provided in their dialect. A process that's supposed to assist a group of people may unintentionally create more problems. And we've worked with barber and cosmetology for many, many years and been through these issues where they've said that the examination was not translated correctly, where we've had it to retranslate it, pay someone to retranslate it differently, and so there are a lot of issues. And it may be better now with technology is of course helping with these processes. But significant resources must be committed. Examination development is not a static process. We don't just create one test and leave it out there for years and years. Test questions are edited, new questions are written, new forms are created, and must be translated, adapted, and reviewed. Translated examinations often have lower passing rates. Once you have translated the examination into Spanish, for example, you must publish the passing rates for both the English and the Spanish forms of the examination. And finally, by offering the examination in one language, you may receive requests to translate the examination into additional languages. This is the case for barbering and cosmetology. They're now publishing their examination in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, and Korean. Next slide. So, in conclusion, I hope this information is helpful to BAR to consider all aspects of translating examinations. From the knowledge that we currently have about your program, OPS believes that the BAR programs don't currently meet the criteria for translating examinations. However, if you decide that you do want to move in that direction, OPS will support that decision. We believe that BAR is taking steps to increase the diversity of the profession. I understand that BAR is working on developing training programs in underserved communities. We encourage BAR to focus on recruiting a diverse group of subject matter experts to develop the examinations and especially to set the passing score. BAR currently offers translators to candidates who request them. So this is a good compromise to be responsive to candidates who may need a translator. So we understand BAR is currently doing that, and one of the reasons that we're saying we don't see right now a big need for translating the examinations, that we understand there's not very many requests for someone to use a translator. However, we do think that you should make sure that candidates are aware of this option. The Contractor State License Board has used translators for many, many years. It has a well-established program for approving translators. So we recommend that you make sure that that option is on your website and known to applicants who may want to take advantage of it. And that way, you can monitor the translator requests and the languages that are requested, and periodically reevaluate the need to translate examinations. That's all I have.
An amazing presentation. Thank you very much for agreeing to my request to have you and your team present to the advisory group. I know there's another presentation at our educational advisory group coming up on May 11th. Amy, I believe you're slated to give that presentation. That'll be a virtual meeting. That's the Smog Check Educational Advisory Group, although we're looking at expanding it to other educational opportunities for that group, other educational areas, I should say. I was overwhelmed by the, I had probably for years in my position had undervalued the work that you and your office does, and I shall not be doing that any longer. It's quite an undertaking that you do for all of the licensing and regulatory programs here at the department. Ours is just a small, maybe fraction of the licensing population that requires an examination. It's for smog check, lamp and brake, so 3 programs. I would say roughly a licensing population of around 9,000, if I'm counting correctly. A lot of those are duplicate individuals, the same individual having all 3 of those licenses, since there's so much interconnection between those 3 programs. They are the three inspections and certifications that are required of a salvage titled vehicle, smog, lamp, and brake, soon to be reduced to 2 with the Vehicle Safety Systems Inspection Program, combining the lamp and brake into one more comprehensive program. So we'll be doing that shortly. You'll hear more about that later today at the workshop. It came up at our sunset. It's a question that's continually asked of regulatory entities at the Department of Consumer Affairs about the need to potentially translate exams into other languages. Certainly of a concern of all is about barriers to licensure and barriers to getting into a profession, and certainly we don't want that to be the case. So I appreciate some of the perspectives you've added here today to continue to guide us. I'm certainly want to welcome and interested in hearing any comments from any of the advisory group or any of the public on this, and I hope you can help respond to those better than I will be able to, for sure. Thank you again. Any comments, questions from the advisory group? Not here in the room. How about advisory group members attending via WebEx? Okay, nothing coming up. How about questions, comments from the public? Jean Lopez, Seidner Collision. Do you want, since we're crowded here at this table, maybe this table to the side? Yeah, if you just put the button, can you make sure the green light's on? There you go.
Hi, Gene Lopez from Seidner's Collision Center, and thank you for your presentation. And I think it's important, especially in the barber and cosmetology environment, but also in the automotive repair environment. So I was just thinking, because I just downloaded it today, artificial intelligence, GPT, and that might be, an opportunity for you to translate some of these exams. So I just wanted to bring that up. And if you've looked at that, maybe you could comment to that.
It's coming. We are reading about it. We still have the same issues in that it wouldn't just take away the human factor. You could use that just to start, perhaps, but you would still need to have bilingual SMEs to make sure that the test was understandable from my perspective. But of course, technology is always changing, and we'll keep up on that.
Thank you for the question, Jean, and response, Heidi. Any other questions, comments from? Let's open it up for public comment on the WebEx.
We are now open for public comment via WebEx. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And our first request comes from Christina. Bear with us just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
I'm sorry, I thought I said everything I needed to say.
Oh, your hand was up.
I'm so sorry. I don't know how to work this thing.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Anyone else?
Seeing no other requests for comment, shall we return to the agenda?
Yes, we shall. Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you, Heidi,
Thank you.
Amy, and Karen
Very good.
for attending. I really appreciate you doing this on a short notice, I will admit, but they did an excellent job. I had another comment that wasn't going to require a response. Oh, there, along with the presentation, there was a handout translating examinations. That's a 1 plus a little bit more on the second page. It's a two-sided document. It's posted with the presentation on our website. Take some time to take a look at that. It's a nice read of and summary of some of the things that were contained in Heidi's presentation. All right, let's move on. Citation Review Conference Overview. This is part of one of the AB 471 regulation packages, and here to tell us all about the assembling and what we're thinking as it relates to the establishment of the Citation Review Conference process and how to recruit panelists, and he'll explain who those panelists are, what bodies they must represent more thoroughly than I will, but it'll be an auto repair industry representative, a consumer representative, and a bar representative. Here to tell us all about that is Matthew Gibson.
Thank you, Pat.
Welcome.
Is my microphone? Yeah, sounds like it's on. So yeah, I'm here to present about the Citation Review Conference process, or give an overview of the process. My PowerPoint presentation, it's 6 slides, just so you can keep track. So, ARD citation program. So BAR is implementing a new citation program to address automotive repair dealer violations of the Automotive Repair Act with the goal of filling the current gap that exists in BAR's efforts to address compliance issues through either education or formal disciplinary action, as Pat was referring to earlier. Addressing violations of a concerning nature that are frequently occurring, but that by themselves do not rise to the level warranting disciplinary action. And providing information about concerning violations BAR identifies so that consumers can make a more informed decision when choosing a repair facility. Next slide. So AB 471 created an informal appeal process for citations issued for violations of the Automotive Repair Act that previously did not exist, and it also created a 3-member citation review panel to hear the informal appeals of those citations. The panel consists of a member of the public, the automotive repair industry, and the Bureau. And AB 471 also created a remedial training process to allow a cited individual to prevent disclosure of these citations, but only for violations BAR deems to be minor in nature, and only once every 18 months. Next slide. So on to the panel members. So the public and automotive repair industry members of the citation panel will be selected by the Bureau Chief through an application process. We have developed and created the applications. We have developed a reference material for the panel members and orientation program for the panel members. We are ready to begin recruitment once our regulations become adopted. As the panel members are volunteers, BAR will endeavor to keep the panel members' participation to no more than 1 day per month and schedule their citation review conferences 4 to 6 weeks in advance. Panel members will serve a 2-year term that can be extended an additional 2 years by the Bureau Chief. And panel members are subject to removal by the Bureau Chief at any time for any reason. Next slide. All right, when scheduling the Citation Review Conference, the cited individual will be contacted by BAR to arrange a date and time for the conference. They'll receive an email from BAR with the conference invite, And they'll receive a letter verifying the conference date and time with the names of the panel members participating in the conference. And this information is being provided to the cited individuals because they have the ability to object to a panel member. And we will have a process in the regulations for the chief to review those objections and either to accept or reject them. And obviously that could have implications on scheduling their conferences. As for the panel members, they will receive an email from BAR with their conference invite, and they will receive copies of the BAR issued citations, including the cited individuals' information that they will be reviewing. And they're receiving that information for exactly the same reason, so that the panel members can determine if they have any conflict of interest with any of the individuals that have been cited or the businesses that have been cited prior to the conference. Next slide. Citation Review Conference will be conducted virtually using Microsoft Teams. BAR personnel will be coordinating and administering the conference. Panel members will hear a verbal summary of the BAR investigation that led to the issuance of the citation. And I'm saying it's verbal because we will not be providing copies of the citation reports to the panel members, but they will have a copy of the citation itself. They also receive, or they will also hear any statement from the cited individual that they wish to make regarding the citation. Panel members may ask clarifying questions of BAR and the cited individual. No evidence may be presented by BAR or the cited individual. And if a cited individual fails to appear, the conference will proceed without them. Next slide. Panel members will make recommendations to the bureau chief or their designee by majority vote to affirm, modify, or dismiss the citation. The bureau chief or their designee shall consider the recommendation of the panel when rendering a decision on the informal citation review. Cited individual will be sent the decision letter within 10 days of the conclusion of the conference. The cited individual may request an administrative hearing before an administrative law judge to contest the informal decision. And remedial training for cited individuals, if they're eligible, will continue to be available after issuance of the informal decision. And as I talked about, as far as eligibility, the violation can only be minor in nature, and they can't have attended remedial training in the prior 18 months. And that is the presentation.
Short and sweet. Thank you very much. A very succinct presentation, but very informative. Appreciate that, Matthew. Any questions, comments from the advisory group members? Mr. Kusa.
Thank you, Matt. How many panels do we anticipate having?
Yeah.
We need a deep bench.
There's going to be a deep bench.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
So I'll say right now, I don't know how many citations we're going to issue.
That was my next question.
Yeah. But if it's anything like smog check, you could imagine maybe 120 a month. Once this is up and running, after the program has been implemented for some period of time and these things are coming through complaint investigations. And so from there, I don't know how many people are going to appeal.
Right.
But if I took appeal rates from smog check prior to STAR, it might be teens, we're talking less than 20%. So I was anticipating us having conferences on a weekly basis. And again, I only want to have panel members tied up for one day a month doing these things. I'm anticipating a half hour per conference, so I'm thinking they can do 10 per day.
Okay.
And so if I had a panel going for a month that has 4 weeks, I should be able to do 40 conferences. And then that's how I was initially thinking that we roll these out once appeals start rolling in, and then adjust from there whether we need more or less.
Okay. And then you.
Oh, and I didn't really answer your question. I don't know.
You don't know. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Number.
Yeah.
And the combination of the panel members might change depending on different scenarios too, because we'll have to have a panel member theoretically that is specialized in auto body to deal with auto body citations.
Sure.
We already were accounting for that, and it has to just do with availability. But the panel will exist for one day to do the conference.
So the panel would do potentially multiple complaints in one day.
They're going to be, assuming we have more to hear.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We'll do as many
The
as we
potential's
can.
there, right? Okay. And then mention that the copy of the complaint would be supplied to the panel, but just a verbal report of the complaint report, not a.
It's not a complaint. They'll get the citation.
The citation. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's what. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, wrong word. So the panel would get a copy of the citation, but not necessarily the citation report, which would be presented verbally. Why not the written report ahead of time, just to be familiar with it?
Well, because they're members of the public. I mean, except for the bar representative, and we're not going to be providing information about.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Privacy disclosures.
don't provide complaint reports to customers or repair shops. It's similar. Having said that, the citation is public at the point that we serve it, and they will receive that. The citation is going to mention this, shop name. It's going to have the code sections that we're alleging have been violated, and the circumstances that we're saying caused the violation that we issued the citation for. So that information will be in the citation. But yeah, the actual investigation that resulted in the issue of the citation, they're just going to get it verbally. They're not able to accept evidence either.
Right.
So it's part of that as well.
Okay, good, thank you.
And the short answer is the investigative report is considered confidential unless subpoenaed by a court. So. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Molodonov?
Thanks, Matt, for the presentation. Yeah, let's go back to page 6, because that struck me as a little odd, where on the second line, second bullet point from the bottom, no evidence may be presented by the BAR or the cited individual. Isn't that the whole purpose of the hearing, that the applicant or at least the person who got cited feels like the citation was wrongly issued, and they're presenting testimony themselves? That's direct evidence as to why this thing should not have been issued in the first place. So, I think that defeats the purpose, right? That they're going to be talking about evidence, right? And that's what the panel's going to decide.
They're allowed to present their side of the story, absolutely. But them submitting documents for consideration that will then become a part of if the cited individual wants to submit evidence for consideration, the administrative process is going to be where they'll ultimately end up. This is in line with our other informal appeal processes where we can't, the informal, and as the chief's designee to deal with star appeals, we don't accept evidence in the informal appeal process. So we hear their arguments and we make decisions based on those.
So let me just throw up a hypothetical, since I've got my auto body hat on. So a citation is issued under 3365, which is on the regulations, has to do with the auto body shop didn't meet repair standards, okay? Because it didn't meet the OEM standard, okay? And it's issued, there's a citation issued. During the hearing, or at least right before, the person who received the citation does some research and finds something buried where maybe a statement somewhere where the OEM, the manufacturer, said you could do it this way, and they want to present it to the panel, right? They're saying, hey, this, I got a citation because BAR said I didn't meet the OEM standard, based on what they found. The person that got cited says, well, wait a minute here, I found this under a technical service bulletin or whatever. They found it. It's from the Don't you think that's important evidence for the panel to decide whether the citation was issued appropriately?
I think it's important information that they would need to be made aware of, absolutely.
Okay, so you're envisioning that could be presented to the panel.
I'm envisioning that the cited individual will be telling the panel all about it.
Okay, and they can present this, the evidence, or I call it evidence because maybe I got my lawyer hat on, but present the document to or at least show it to the panel so they can see that, oh yes, this is what the manufacturer says versus the citation.
Remember, we're going to be virtual, right? They're not actually going to be there. I guess if they were going to share their screen about this document, I don't know. I'm just.
I don't think we're going to have any objections to that. We're just not holding. It's not a formal administrative hearing where we take evidence like a judge would. This is informal, as the statute reads. So you can't. It's not entering evidence into a record and then do I guess some sort of fact finding would be allowed. But again, it's not a formal administrative or civil hearing where evidence is entered into a record.
I understand that. I'm just bringing that hypothetical, just saying otherwise, why is that, he or she is appealing that in front of this formal board, wants to present, their side of the story. And this document, whatever it may be, or their testimony is something that should be heard by the panel. That's
I think it's natural that it'll come up.
Okay. Let me, a couple of follow-ups. Now, when the citation is issued and it's sent to the ARD, will that be posted on the BAR website at that point?
At the point that it's issued and sent, no, not then.
So when will so as the citation gets sent to the ARD and they decide to appeal, okay, and they want before this informal panel, at that point, it's still not going to be posted on the website, correct?
When they appeal to the panel?
Yes.
No, it wouldn't.
No. Okay. So when will it be, I guess, when will the citation be posted on the website? How is that going to work?
So there's been conversations we've had with our Bureau counsel. We've had several discussions and probably ongoing conversations about exactly that subject. I think where we left it was that at the conclusion of the informal appeal process, if it is affirmed or modified, and the cited individual is not eligible for remedial training because of either the nature of the violation or the fact that they've taken remedial training in the past 18 months, they would probably post then.
Okay.
Pending whatever, I mean, the administrative hearing, or if that's where it ends.
Okay, so the citation gets affirmed, they're eligible, they can take training, it's still not posted until, and if they take training, it'll never be posted.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you for that. And my last question is, if it is posted on the website, the citation, how long will it be posted for?
So we've had conversations about that as well. And I think the last time we talked about it, it was 7 years, or we were on the 7 years for the posting of the citations.
7 years?
We have to look at our records retention schedule. Anything less than whatever our records retention schedule has to be, we have to do a regulation to alter anything from that schedule. Actually, if you look at the Business Professions Code, section 27, it almost, it gives you the impression that it could be indefinitely, but obviously that's not our intention.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm going to the left now, Mr. Gallo, in order of the...
Just to follow up on Jack's question as to how long it stays out there, I know shops right now deal with 3-year record retention. And some of the discussions we've had along our board with Cal ABC is, if we already have that as a requirement, that we retain all our records for BAR inspections, investigations, whatever, for 3 years, why wouldn't the citation process carry the same type of timeline for when it's considered the record? Because a lot of shops after 3 years, I don't have to retain those anymore, I can shred them.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden we're looking at a citation process and we're saying, okay, if we got to keep these records 7 years or indefinitely, how does that really match up with a 3-year record retention that we already have for other documents?
That's a good point.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did receive a public comment from at least one of the attendees here relating to records retention and advocated, I think we advocated pretty hard to try and include a time frame for which those citations would be posted.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
You mean in the comment period?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And we did, but it was determined that that was outside the scope of this regulation package, so we would have to pursue something outside of it. And we're not against it. We certainly understand the concern. Yeah, Ms. Ayers.
So the way I understand the panel is the person from industry will relate to the citation, like auto body will have an auto body person, smog will have a smog person.
But smog's not going to be handled by the panel.
Oh, it's not?
No. Smog, informal appeals for smog are handled through a process within health and safety.
Oh, so that's excluded from the citation process?
Yeah, it has a different process spelled out in its own laws. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't understand.
A single member, the chief or the chief's designee.
Okay, I didn't understand that. So, what's going to be the process for a person from the public to be allowed to be on this panel?
A member of the public?
Yeah, the background, do they have to have any background or anything?
So, so we talked about ideally what would good candidates for the industry and the public member would be.
Mm-hmm.
We set up the application to try to find out certain information about the public. Are you asking what we would want in a public member? Is that the question? Well, I'm thinking that ideally, I think we would look for somebody who, although may know about BAR, probably isn't very familiar with BAR, has a mostly positive impression of the automotive repair industry, and is available.
Yeah.
You know, one day a week or one day a month. But that's kind of where it's at. We have questions on the application about whether they know anybody or at BAR, or if they are familiar with, they filed a complaint, or if they related to anybody who's worked for the Bureau, or even in the automotive repair industry, and we were trying to minimize those types of contacts in our public member.
Are you going to give a list of types of questions that can be asked during the process, or are you going to limit the panel to the type of questioning?
As far as the panel members asking questions of the cited person and BAR?
Right.
No, they can ask.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, clarifying questions, I want them to be able to understand what's being told to them.
So it's going to be 3 panel members and someone who's overriding the panel to keep everything together?
Yeah, there's going to be a BAR, somebody's going to have to administer the actual hearing, so they're going to be bringing the person in, providing information to the panel members, bringing the person in, introducing them, having them give their side of the story, and be available to answer those types of questions, clarifying questions. So yeah, there'll be a Bureau person in there. So depending on how many people from the shop, whether it's just a cited individual or a cited individual and a attorney or representative, based on what they want, it's going to be 3 panel members, 1 BAR person, and then people from the shop.
And they'll be allowed to bring an attorney in as well?
I'm sorry?
Did
you bring an attorney?
Yeah.
They can if they wish, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. McKernan.
So with regard to the remedial training, it says for individuals that are for violations the BAR deems to be minor in nature. Could you give an example of what the BAR would deem to be minor versus not?
I could, well, in the regulations, we specifically say what is not deemed to be minor in nature, and that's fraud and gross negligence. So by default, everything else in the Automotive Repair Act is deemed to be minor for the purposes of issuing a citation.
So this will stick to that same? Okay.
Good questions all the way around. Other questions, comments from advisory group members via the WebEx, attending via the WebEx, excuse me. All right, we'll open up for public comment on this agenda item. Jean Lopez again.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for your presentation. So first, where's the application to be a panelist? Where is it available? And 2...
On your computer, right? It's waiting to be released upon adoption of the regulations.
Oh, okay. And so when would the deadline for applications be?
It's weird that you're over there. My microphone's
I could join you.
No, come on up, buddy. Anyway, I don't know if there's a deadline because there isn't really a start date. Once the regs are adopted, we'll put the application out for people to start submitting them. And at the point that we have what we perceive to be enough panel members, then we'll probably continue to accept them, but those people will be told that they'll be held until we need additional panel members. I think what we're thinking right now is we need about 5 consumers or public members and about 6 industry people, 2 of which are probably going to need to be auto body.
Okay. I'll put my name in that hat.
Just keep in mind, you saw the whole thing about the conflict of interest, right? All right. We're all good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Can we open it up for public comments on the WebEx moderator, please?
We are open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And it looks like our first request comes from Jerry Esme. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Are you ready?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if that was for me or the moderator.
Well, it was actually, well, that was for you, Matt.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm just curious. I mean, I understand that this is going to be attorneys, which I brought this up before.
Oh, remedial training.
Research has been done with these attorneys that have shown an interest in providing this training, and I assume, from what I read on regulations, they have to prepare it, their own course. They're going to have to write a course. Lord knows how much that's going to cost. Then at what cost will they have to charge an ARD for remedial training of 8 hours? Do you have any idea how that's going to happen?
Well, okay, so not exactly. Do you mean how? Do I know how? What part of that is going to happen?
That attorneys, have you spoken to any attorneys? Do you have any online that are interested in this?
I don't know.
Don't know. I mean, I'm just curious because I write courses and I know how long it takes to even write an 8-hour citation course for smog. I'm just curious what they would want to charge to do this. I mean, let me put it this way. If an ARD is going to pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, they're not even going to bother with it. They're going to let it be public record. Just saying. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen there.
We're all going to get to find out together. And I think you're right. I don't think, honestly, I'd imagine that it won't be $5,000 to attend the training, but we'll find out what the market will bear.
Okay, fair enough. But it is something you before you actually put this into effect, you will have gotten a hold of some attorneys that show an interest in providing this training because nobody wants to do it.
So what I will tell you is that as soon as the regulations, in addition to having applications already to go for our panel members, I also have an application ready to go for remedial training providers. As soon as the regulations are adopted, we will put it out in the world and we will see. We'll open the floodgates to all the training that's coming our way.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll know what we have, I guess is the point.
Okay, very good. But I just would hope that there would be some forewarning on what the cost might be to an ARD for this type of training. Just, like you said, the market will figure it out, but I guess what they'll end up doing is deciding, is it worth it or not? That would be a choice.
Again, the training can be provided multiple ways, and then the regulations have made this really super flexible. So, for example, it can be online, in-person online training. It could just be an online course that's self-paced by the student or the sighted individual who's taking it. It could be taught in person. And so I guess maybe there'll be different prices based on different types of training classes that are available. I can't imagine if there was like a self-paced type course that it would be more than like a smog check citation course, but I guess we'll find out.
Hey, Jerry, this is Pat.
Yes.
I'm not asking you to disclose what you charge, but do you have a sense of what the average cost of the remedial training for smog check technical training, an 8-hour course is?
Yeah, it's $400.
Okay.
$400 for an 8-hour course, the hands-on and the classroom training. Of course, some places were allowed by regulation, I guess it is, or by educational, that some could do some online training, half of it online, I guess, but I don't. Everything's in person with me. And I'm just saying, and I'm not an attorney. I don't get paid attorney wages. Okay. So I'm just curious, if this is, I think it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I like the idea and all that. And it's not that I would want to do any kind of that training, but I'm just curious if requiring somebody that's certified by the state bar as a licensed attorney, how many in different areas, what towns would they be offering it, and create an online course and manage that along with a test? There's different issues that could come up that might just not make it cost effective for even the bar to do it that method. Okay, I mean, maybe pay an attorney to create an online course that's administered by bar and have them pay a fee to have to take that course. I think they could get as much out of that as actually having to have an in-person or a online or Zoom thing with an attorney. Just my thoughts. I haven't thought about it real hard, but it's just my thoughts that have come to me recently thinking about it for the last year almost. So anyway.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Moderator, any other comments?
There are no other requests for comment at the moment.
All right. Matthew, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, let's move along. We are coming up close on the 12 o'clock hour. Yeah, we still got an hour. All right, our next presenter is with the California Energy Commission on a regulation package that's being worked on by that agency involving replacement tire efficiency. Sebastian Serrato is joining us via WebEx to present to the group. Welcome, Sebastian. Are you still with us? Are you still there?
I am. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Lovely, lovely.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much. I'm going to turn it over to you right now.
Much appreciated. Again, thank you for the opportunity to participate remotely. It helps with being so busy over here. But all right, if everyone can hear me, I'll just jump right into it. So good morning, soon to be afternoon. So I'd like to give my thanks to the Bureau of Automotive Repair, its board and members for the time and forum to provide with an overview of the Replacement Tire Efficiency Program, work and proposals. Again, my name is Sebastian Serrato, and I'm with the Fuels and Transportation Division. And listed on the slide are the staff members at the Energy Commission, the CEC, who worked on this proceeding. On the line also is Ken Ryder. He's our Chief Policy Advisor, and he'll be online for questions later on in the presentation. So I'll do my best to stay on time. Please save any questions or comments for the end. And separately from today's comments, written comments and submissions are also welcome, and instructions for providing those are in the original workshop link and in the CC's Replacement Tire Efficiency Program webpage, and we will provide detail on this during the presentation. And the docket for this proceeding is 20 Tire 01, 20 TIRE 01. All right, next I'll review the agenda for today's presentation. So we'll give a detail on the order instituting informational proceeding and objectives. We'll provide background on the legislative mandates, give insight on the OII proceeding progress and schedule, detail existing efficiency regulations and programs. Then we'll provide an overview of staff analysis and staff's proposed regulations. And lastly, we'll offer some closing remarks and comments. So the objective of the order instituting informational proceeding are to gain insight on the replacement tire efficiency as outlined in Assembly Bill 844. So to give an overview, CC staff were directed to look at investigating replacement tire efficiency and implementing AB 844 through an order instituting informational proceeding, or an OII, in November of 2020. A public workshop was held February 2021. Staff then gathered information to inform the proceeding, including discussions with Canada, the European Union, tire retailers, the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association, and Smithers Testing Laboratories, among other sources. So a testing program was established where 149 tire models were tested in triplicate at Smithers Lab in Ohio. Recently, staff released the draft staff framework report on February 1st of this year, copies of which are made available on our docket website. You can also reach out to me or our team for links or copies. So Assembly Bill 844, at its heart, aims to raise the energy efficiency of replacement tires in California to be equal to original equipment tires. This helps with the issue that often happens when consumers purchase replacement tires and may unwittingly end up with tires that are significantly less efficient than what the vehicle came with when new. You see here the language in the enabling legislation. Among other requirements, here are 5 key directives in Assembly Bill 844. One is a database of the energy efficiency of a representative sample of replacement tires sold in the state based on test procedures adopted by the Commission. Secondly, based on data collected, establish a rating system for the energy efficiency of replacement tires sold in the state that will enable consumers to make more informed decisions when purchasing tires for their vehicles. Next, establish requirements that manufacturers report the energy efficiency of replacement tires. Then develop and adopt a minimum energy efficiency standard for replacement tires. Also, establish a program that will enable consumers to make more informed decisions when purchasing tires for their vehicles. So the entirety of Assembly Bill 844 is quoted in the staff report found in Appendix B for your reference. From the previous slide, the fourth bullet is the minimum performance standard. AB 844 states that the performance standard on energy efficiency must meet the following conditions. Be technically feasible and cost effective, not adversely affect tire safety, not adversely affect the average tire life of replacement tires, and not adversely affect state efforts to manage scrap tires. So the staff report covers in detail how each of these items were addressed with the proposed regulation. Here's a quick introduction slide that summarizes the major components of the proposed regulation. The rating system that we are proposing is a 5-star rating system. The consumer information program we are proposing includes posters and tire data in a database. And the minimum performance standard is a phased-in standard, with the first phase coming into effect January 1st, 2026, and the second phase coming into effect January 1st, 2028, at least within the proposal. We will further detail the regulatory language, the proposed regulatory language later in the presentation. So when we talk about replacement tires, we want to be clear what we're referring to. A brief explanation may help with that. So for original equipment tires, when a new vehicle is sold, the tires it comes with are considered to be original equipment tires. As you may know, these tend to be highly energy efficient, as a lot of manufacturers specifically choose that will help tires that will help them meet the federal government's fuel economy standards, referred to as CAFE. As for replacement tires, for our program, we define replacement tires as those sold or offered for sale in California, except as wholesale for sale outside the state, designed to replace new vehicle tires. These do include original equipment tires that are purchased as replacement tires. So in other words, often you can buy the same tire as what came on the car when new. As noted, replacement tires tend to be less energy efficient. So currently, consumers don't have a way to know how replacement tires will affect their vehicle's fuel economy. So the legislation does provide several exemptions from the regulation, as noted here, including low volume, deep tread, and winter tires, among others. And it is possible that other exemptions may be included in the rulemaking. Now we quickly cover some background on tire efficiency. So remember, AB 844 aims to raise the energy efficiency of replacement tires in California. For tire efficiency, rolling resistance matters because this is the way efficiency is measured when considering a tire. As a tire flexes when it rotates, friction between molecules causes energy to be converted to heat. This dynamic energy transfer results in changes in the temperature of the tire and impacts the efficiency. These hysteretic losses account for about 80 to 95% of the total rolling resistance. Most research efforts related to reducing rolling resistance have focused on this aspect. Behavior of tire materials results in dissipation of energy from the cyclically deformation during rolling. So just to sum that up, as a tire rolls, it deforms, and this deformation greatly impacts the efficiency, and tire efficiency is measured as the rolling resistance. So federal regulations for tires do exist, but there are not regulations that are implemented that would meet the mandates of Assembly Bill 844. Current federal regulations specifically detail reporting information, and these fall under the Uniform Tire Quality Grading System, UTQG, which requires manufacturers to report tread wear, traction, and temperature.
Bless you.
Here are some examples of tire labels from international tire programs that have been implemented to inform their consumers. The European Union established a rating system which uses a 5-scale letter graded system, which is color-coded for efficiency. They also include other tire characteristics such as wet traction, performance, extreme environmental characteristics, and noise ratings. Japan and South Korea have adopted the components of the European Union rating system. They adopted a tiered rating system to inform consumers on tire efficiency and have provided labels for the consumers to understand. Both of these are voluntary systems in terms of manufacturer participation. So staff has maintained regular calls with Canada's agencies, Natural Resources Canada and Transport Canada, and the European Commission on the progress of their respective programs. I will now provide an overview of the program timeline. So the Order Instituting Informational Proceeding, the OI, was opened in November of 2020, followed by a workshop and request for information in February of 2021. During this time until now, there's been significant outreach accomplished. A testing program was launched in 2022 and continues. Staff produced and published a staff report and draft proposed regulation in February of this year. Moving forward, staff will review comments and hold necessary discussions, and the next phase is for the Commission to enter into an order instituting rulemaking proceeding, which is to be determined. Just to note, currently we are in the pre-rulemaking stage, so during the rulemaking phase of this regulation, there will be additional drafting provided to the public for review. Here's an overview of some of the outreach that the Energy Commission staff has accomplished, including discussions with tire industry members, federal and state agencies, international bodies, and other interested parties. So we'll now detail the testing program undertaken. The OII did not yield any recent tire efficiency performance data through our request for information, so a new testing program was implemented. Smithers was selected to conduct rolling resistance and wet traction testing. 149 tire models were tested. 3 of each model were tested for rolling resistance and 1 each for wet traction. A European North American correlation testing has been completed, and a final report was completed and published to the Energy Commission docket on February 1st. Here's a slide detailing the CEC tire selection process. Just to put it briefly, we selected tires representing 3 major groups to meet their mandates of Assembly Bill 844 and have a representative sample of tires that fit vehicles registered in California. The 3 groups are replacement tires, original equipment tires, and efficient tires as marketed by manufacturers. As discussed earlier, the tire efficiency and wet grip were laboratory tested. However, information about the UTQG or the federal rating systems and other tire characteristics were taken from the tire sidewall. There are 3 key measurements from UTQG, again, that appear on the tire sidewall: tread wear, traction, and temperature. A number of other important characteristics, such as tires' dimensions, load index, and speed rating, can also be found on the tire sidewall, and these items are required to be reported and imprinted by the federal government. So California light-duty vehicles travel over 30 million miles each year and do so against the rolling resistance of 4 tires, typically. The energy used to counter the rolling resistance force must be provided through a system of motor, engine, and drivetrain, which amplifies the energy losses in tires. So this means rolling resistance is a large driver of fuel use in the state. The 2 charts on this slide show that tires are responsible for nearly 2.5 billion gallons of gasoline annually. The fuel use in California is also changing over time, with the increasing popularity and policy surrounding electric vehicles, such that rolling resistance will start to become a factor for energy use in the grid, reaching 10,000 gigawatt hours per year in 2035. This slide shows the relationship between rolling resistance and tire cost, as well as typical tire performance for tire categories. The x-axis shows the cost of the tire in dollars, and the y-axis shows the rolling resistance coefficient. As a reminder, lower numbers mean more efficient. So the colors indicate the groupings discussed in the tire selection process: OEM, replacement, and efficient tires. So the majority of the data are represented by the green dots. These are replacement tires from the California market. They have an average rolling resistance coefficient of just a little higher than 9. The red dots represent tires that are marketed as efficient. They had a better average ROC at just above 8. And lastly, the blue dots represent original equipment tires, OEM tires, which had an average ROC of 7.65. A few things to note is that there does not seem to be a relationship between the price of a tire and its efficiency. It is also clear that OEM tires are significantly more efficient than typical replacement tires, although there are replacement tires on the market that are also efficient as OEM tires. Strangely, there are also tires that are marketed as efficient that are near or below the average performance of the replacement tires, of the general replacement tires, lending further evidence that consumer information and ratings would help the market. As discussed earlier, the majority of tire energy losses come from the deformation deformation, and hysteresis of the tire. Therefore, the tire compounds and composition are key to its rolling resistance. Some key areas of technology development include changes to tread design, changes in the way chemistry of rubber compounds used, ways that the rubber matrix combines with other tire components, and the use of plasticizers and silica to increase efficiency. Very efficient tires that utilize these technologies are on the market today that meet the proposed standard levels. So one of the key criteria for Assembly Bill 844 is that the proposed standard be cost effective. This slide shows how rolling resistance affects the fuel costs of vehicles, showing an example car and truck and 3 levels of tire efficiency, low, medium, and high. There's a lot of information here, but I think I'd like to summarize this by saying that the incremental costs are significantly smaller than the savings, and payback would be achieved in between 2 and 3 months. The truck example shows that the fuel savings are larger for heavier vehicles. Although the incremental cost is estimated to be larger, it is still very cost effective to use higher efficiency tires. Another key criteria of Assembly Bill 844 is that a standard not adversely affect vehicle safety. The Commission looked at 2 key metrics for safety, the traction rating and the wet grip testing. So this chart shows the tested rolling resistance and wet grip index. The correlation coefficients are near 0, indicating that there is no linear relationship in the data. In the case of economy tires, the correlation was slightly stronger, but still indicates a poor correlation. So in other words, this data does not show adverse impacts to tire safety as represented by wet grip. Staff also looked at the UTQG traction rating in relation to rolling resistance coefficient. The vast majority of tires selected, 129 to be exact, tire models had a UTQG traction rating of A. However, there were 6 tires selected with a traction of AA and 9 with a rating of B. So while the sample size is small for categories outside of A, the CC staff report suggests a closer look at B and AA categories may be warranted. While the data shows there are efficient tires that both have good wet grip and traction ratings, the staff report specifically requests stakeholder insights and feedback on these results and any additional data, available data on safety. Assembly Bill 844 also requires that any standard not adversely impact the average life of replacement tires. So staff examined the relationship between UTQG tread wear grade and rolling resistance as an indicator of impact to tire life. The chart shows the rolling resistance coefficient as measured by Smithers on the y-axis. Again, lower numbers represent higher efficiency. And on the x-axis is the UTQG tread wear grade. So also present on the graph is a linear regression line with its associated correlation coefficient. The near 0 correlation coefficient shows no linear relationship between the rolling resistance coefficient and the UTQG tread wear grade. This data does not show that improved tire efficiency will degrade the average life of replacement tires. Staff anticipates substantial environmental benefits from this program. The estimated potential reduction of 5.4 million metric tons of CO2 equivalents, 1,485 tons of NOx, and 239 tons of PM2.5 per year in the year 2035. These reductions were calculated using the estimates of reduced fuel consumption for more efficient tires. Besides air emission impacts, staff also considered other environmental impacts, which includes tire waste. These proposed standards are not expected to shorten tire life or impact the used or waste tire market in any material way. Staff also considered the concerns about 6-PPD, which is a compound used by tire manufacturers to reduce tire cracking and extend the useful life of tires. And again, the proposed efficient tire program is not expected to affect the use of this compound. So here's a summary of some of the economic benefits found in the report. The table on the left are the estimated annual fuel savings in 2035 by fuel type from using more efficient tires. The graph on the right illustrates these potential savings in money saved per year by the proposed program. Savings would begin to ramp up starting in 2026 when the proposed standards would be in effect, and then level or peak out around $2.5 billion per year in 2035. So staff found a lack of consumer information lack of available consumer information on tire efficiency. Other key tire attributes such as wet grip, load, heat rating, wear are all required to be on the side of a tire, and this is not true for energy efficiency. And virtually no objective information is available to the public on efficiency. So AB 844 helps to address this knowledge gap by directing the CC to develop a consumer information program. So this will help consumers make more informed decisions about their effect on fuel economy. In preparing the draft staff report, consumer equity was also examined, which looks at how the proposed program may impact low-income and disadvantaged communities in our state. These are areas that suffer the most from economic, health, and environmental burdens. Staff found that the proposed program should not impact tire wear, which would lead to higher costs. Except under scenarios of extremely low fuel prices and high incremental tire costs, the program will be highly cost-effective for consumers. This savings over the life of the tires will provide meaningful savings, and we estimate an average car will save $431 per year in fuel, going from a high rolling resistance of about 11 tires to a medium of about 9, and the estimated savings is even more for trucks. We also noted that higher incremental costs due to the proposed program could potentially pose a safety risk to the most price-sensitive buyers if they delay replacing worn tires. However, incentives could address this possible concern. So staff will monitor these potential impacts going forward and make necessary adjustments. This is a summary of the proposed regulations, and we encourage interested parties to review the staff report for a complete description and full language of the proposed regulations. And again, we request any feedback. So Section 3308 establishes staff proposed tire rating systems that will support staff's minimum efficiency standards, and combined with other information, including UTQG ratings, would be communicated to consumers. The tire fuel efficiency rating would be based on the rolling resistance coefficient as measured by the adopted test method, and staff recommends a star scale that rates tires from 1 to 5 stars, with 5 being the most efficient. These ratings span the efficiency of tires currently sold in California and distribute most of these tires into the middle star categories. The replacement tire efficiency rating, in conjunction with the peak wet traction rating, will allow CEC staff to monitor compliance and effects of minimum efficiency standards. And together, the ratings will inform consumers so they can adjust their tire purchases to more efficient tires without sacrificing peak wet traction. Section 3305 would create a tire rolling resistance efficiency database called the TRRED, TREAD for short. So the TREAD would include a publicly searchable online interface permitting users to search for and compare relative rolling resistance ratings and certain other tire attributes. This section would require manufacturers to report various tire attributes such as tire model, size, and rolling resistance rating, among other items. So staff proposes to allow manufacturers to self-certify tire rolling resistance and peak wet traction ratings instead of submitting actual test measurements. So staff requests stakeholder feedback on 2 questions related to staff's self-certification approach. Section 3307 proposes a phased-in minimum efficiency performance standard that would apply to the sale of new replacement tires beginning in 2026 with a minimum RRC of 9 newtons per kilonewton, and a more stringent standard 7.0 newtons per kilonewton would take effect beginning in 2028. Staff also proposed a petition for exemption from the minimum efficiency standards and seek feedback on any petitions and use for those various cases. Section 3309 would establish a consumer information program at the point of sale, but not labels or markings on tires. Tire retailers would be required to display information in a conspicuous and readily accessible manner about the Energy Commission's rating system, including a web address and a quick response code, a QR code, linking to the Energy Commission's website for specific tire information. Physical tire retailers would additionally be required to provide, upon request, a disclosure of the specific ratings for tires consumers are considering. Staff anticipates that tire retail salespeople will take brief training supplied by the Energy Commission to explain the rating system to consumers and answer potential questions on tire energy efficiency. Staff also proposes that the Energy Commission's website would provide information to consumers about the benefits of the tire maintenance on tire tread wear, traction, and fuel economy. Section 3310 provides for compliance and verification through the Executive Director, and also provides for general administration such as clarifying that a submission to the TRED database is an affirmative representation to the Energy Commission that the Energy Commission may rely on, and contact information manufacturers provide to the TRED system for purposes of giving official notice. It also establishes a mechanism to appeal a determination made by the executive director. As part of our investigation, staff consider alternatives to what we are proposing today. You can see several alternative pathways that we looked at. Ultimately, all of these scenarios were found to either not match the projected fuel and emissions reductions or not meet the directives within AB 844. This is the conclusion of the Energy Commission presentation, and we encourage feedback and are willing to hold discussions after this workshop to review any questions or comments that the public may have. So to submit comments to this program, you can do this through our docket. And for the docket, you can simply go to the tire page on the Energy Commission's website shown here, click on Submit an e-comment to add a comment to our docket. Again, today we are presenting our draft proposal for the program, and based on feedback we received, the regulatory language may change before the formal rulemaking process starts. Here's my contact information and another lead, John T. Clapp, and the Replacement Tire Efficiency Program website for any questions. We look forward to any discussions or comments on the proceeding. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. I appreciate you coming before the Bar Advisory Group to give this presentation. I know that there is a process for advisory group members or any other interested party to comment on the regulatory package, but I will open it up for briefly for some observations or comments from any of the advisory group members and public, as we are obligated to do. And looking around on the panel, any questions, comments, observations? Mr. Maladonoff.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Sebastian, for the presentation and being here today. I just wanted to at least put a few things in perspective, because I know the presentation focused quite a bit on the tires themselves, but in terms of the automotive repair dealer that sells tires, the retailer here, I know from their standpoint, the draft regulations at this point places requirements on any automotive repair dealer that sells replacement tires. For example, they'll have to post signs, provide disclosures. If they advertise, there's certain requirements. And as I understand, I didn't see it in the regulations, but you did comment on the automotive repair dealer will have to take training on when selling replacement tires. Is that sort of is my understanding correct of the obligations on the retailer?
As the current proposal is drafted, we do see the consumer information program to be fairly self-sufficient, but there will be that component where the consumers interact at the retail spaces. So I think we do envision that training would happen to inform the consumers. That would be minimal, but we are again still in the proposal process of the proceeding, and we would take any feedback on any part of that training or any considerations that the retailers would provide to us.
One of the areas that I didn't see in the regulations, and I know this was brought up in comments, I brought this up before, but it has to do with the automotive repair dealer that sells tires on a really occasional basis. And I didn't see any exemptions in there for them. For example, an auto body repair shop, let's throw that out. They will replace a tire as part of a collision repair on occasion, right? But they're not really, they're replacing, they're trying to match the particular tire. Their primary business is not selling tires. I mean, you don't have consumers walk into an auto body shop to really buy a set of 4 new tires, right? The way the regulations read now, these requirements would apply to them. They would have to post signs, provide disclosures, go to training. That doesn't seem, I don't know if that seems kind of silly, I guess, what I'm saying. And have you, based on comments, reevaluated that, that area and considering providing some exemptions, or at least, or maybe an alternative, changing the definition of a tire dealer?
We, and I think my colleague Ken was just about to jump in, but we have been in discussions with, beginning again discussions with the retailer groups, and are open to definitions which they would like us to consider. But I think the point of regulation really is for interaction with the manufacturers and allowing them to provide us the items that they sell, and allow those items to or approved items to be sold in California. Ken, I'm sorry if I cut you off there.
Can you hear me all right?
Correct. We can. Sorry.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I was just wanted to clarify something about the training, which is it's not, so there's two parts of the regulation. There's what's required, and there's no requirement on training. But then we also endeavor to estimate and investigate potential costs borne by businesses and whatnot. And we try to look at what is the impact of the regulation. And in that sense, we assumed that because, a customer might ask, hey, how efficient are these tires? And there's this new information. We made an assumption that any new sales associate or something like that is going to need to know what that is, and that would get integrated into whatever job training would happen for a new associate. And so we assume that as a cost, but it's not a requirement. We just wanted to make sure we were, accounting for the impacts of the regulation and making sure that we consider that. And then to just add a little bit to what Sebastian was saying, the poster disclosure is we try to define it as it needs to show up in a place that's that is selling tires. And I think we've gotten good comments, and we're looking into how to define it so that it really does apply to a business that is regularly selling tire, like that's a piece of their core business. And that definition is we don't have the silver bullet definition yet, but we are working on it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for those comments, and I do appreciate you being here today and sharing the presentation and your intentions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Mr. Kusa.
Thanks, Sebastian and Ken. So this is I'm a little bit outdated. I know Jack had asked these questions earlier when he had made a presentation with you, but there was some in regulation concerning signage with pricing on tires that had to be posted. Is that still part of regulation, or is that, where's that process stand?
I don't believe, and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, that signage was a core component, pricing was a core component, especially within our database. It'd be almost an insurmountable task to gather and collect all the various pricings from different outlets. I think those comments were definitely considered and are being considered.
Yeah, good. Okay. Yeah. And just from a shop owner point of view, you're right. It would be an insurmountable task. So, if that is out of the regulation, that's great. If it's still in there, then it certainly needs to be reconsidered. Thank you.
All right. Let's open it up for any other comments from advisory group members on the WebEx? Moderator? No comments? How about for public comment, either in person here or on the WebEx? Anyone in person want to comment on this presentation? All right, moderator, could you open it up for the WebEx?
Absolutely. We are now taking public comment via WebEx. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And our first request comes from Mike Flanagan. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Sebastian, how are you today? So the commission's having a public hearing as we speak. Are they still planning on taking a vote tomorrow?
A part of the so previously the order instituting rulemaking was part of an item for the Energy Commission, the California Energy Commission to consider moving forward with. That item was removed, and right now we are currently only in the order instituting information proceedings, so we're still gathering information at this point.
So no vote tomorrow?
Not on this proceeding or regulatory effort.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Thank you. And it looks like our next request for comment comes from Mark Connerly. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
All right.
Mark, we see you've unmuted your microphone. Are you available?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity just to chime in here. I'm Mark Connerly, Executive Director of the California Tire Dealers Association, and thank you, Sebastian, for that presentation. We've already filed our concerns with the Energy Commission. I just do want to make 2 points here. First of all, and maybe you can respond to these too, Sebastian. First of all, the mandate under AB 844 requires that these standards do not adversely impact safety. And the slides that you had there on safety were tough to digest in the minute or two that they're on the screen. So it was hard for me to really kind of understand them completely. But I am not sold that a tire with less resistance can be equally safe. So I really, first of all, need to know how that's physically possible.
Sure, just to comment on safety. So for us, we tested for wet grip and also compared the efficiency ratings with the UTQG traction ratings that are out there in the federal standards, and so those were our proxies. And we have had discussions with tire retailers about tires, and so you can look at safety in a number of ways, but with our analysis, it doesn't show that safety is being reduced. But again, we can, and I think we're going to be having conversations with the Tire Industry Association, and hopefully CDTA is a part of that. But we can definitely hold a more a one-on-one meeting to review your concerns about safety as well.
Okay, thank you. And the other one, again, also that there were 1 or 2 slides that related to disposal and the life of the tire, and not reducing the life of the tire. We do have concerns about what this will do to the number of tires going into the recycling. Recycling aftermarket. So again, I just want to put that on the record that I think it's going to dramatically impact a situation that's already a serious concern in the state. So when those conversations take place with TIA, I'm sure we'll be on the line, and we really do want to dive into those 2 issues.
Yep, I'm glad you brought those up, and we are coordinating with Cal Recycle about their tire waste program and how a potential future with more efficient tires might impact that program. But with the information and data provided today, I think we're seeing that no correlation between higher efficiency and increased tire waste. But Ken, I'm sorry if I cut you off there.
Wanted to, it's relatable on the safety thing. So I'm an engineer by training, and starting at the beginning of this program, I was also a bit mystified at how, because your first thought is, the friction or the interface with the road and the tire is going to be where the energy losses are for rolling resistance. And, if you fiddle with that, you're going to, cause safety or other issues. But if you think back to Sebastian's slide with the tire where he used the word hysteresis, which is also a very interesting term that is a very technical term. But basically what's happening here is that it's in the actual deformation of the rubber is where it's all, and it's not even just when it gets smashed, it's also when it takes its shape again. And that process is what's driving the bulk of the tire rolling resistance. And so the material changes, you can change the materials of the tire in a way where that loss is reduced, and it's on surfaces that aren't even touching the ground at the time, that are just regaining, its original shape like rubber does. And so, yeah, it is possible without, messing with that interface to reduce those losses. And that's it took me a while to wrap my mind around exactly where the losses were and how they're happening. But that's how it's possible to, maintain safety while also improving or reduce those energy losses.
Okay, well, thank you, Ken. I feel somewhat more at ease, but obviously still would like to dive into this a little bit further when we have the opportunity. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connerly. Any additional public comments, moderator?
There are no other requests for comment at the moment. Shall we return to the agenda?
Yes, we shall. Thank you very much, Sebastian. And
I'd just like to thank you again, Bureau of Automotive Repair, for the opportunity to present and participate. And these types of comments are vital to making good regulations. So we appreciate the forum.
Okay, and then I guess you can add the Bureau or our advisory group to your list of state agencies that you've worked with on this package. I saw that list earlier in your presentation. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move right along to our next presentation from the California Air Resources Board, another state agency that we work very closely with. This presentation is on their program now being called Clean Truck Check, formerly known as Heavy Duty Smog Check or Heavy Duty I&M, Inspection and Maintenance. So here to tell us all about it is a former Bureau of Automotive Repair employee and now employee with the California Air Resources Board, Greg Coburn. Welcome, Greg. Good to see you again.
You as well.
Your button on there, that light?
Got a button.
Yep. Okay, good.
All right. Good to see you as well. Chief DeRay, thanks for having us out today to speak about this program and the rest of the Bar Advisor Group members. Thank you for this request. Pat, you did a great job of covering my first slide of the change in the name to CARB's Clean Truck Check program. I'm one of the managers on the program working to get this thing rolled out. So I won't go through all the topics. We're just going to go through a quick overview of the program, give a real high level what's going on, where we're at, give you guys some more resources to look into it some more. This will be a no calculator needed presentation, just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. So quick program overview. It's a new program similar to Smog Check, but will be done on heavy duty vehicles. It used to be called the Heavy Duty Inspection and Maintenance Program. You'll see it throughout. We're slowly making a transition to the new name, and there will be a new logo coming soon and things, so kind of exciting, starting something from scratch. Who is regulated? So this is any diesel or alternative fuel vehicles over 14,000 pounds GVWR operating in California. That includes out-of-state vehicles, public vehicles, federal, state, local, some private vehicles, including motorhomes. So there's three main phases to the program. The next slide will show this a little bit better. So beginning January 1st, 2023, so a couple of months ago, we began high emitter vehicle screening and enforcement. Put this in bar terms, this is RSD, remote sensing. That has been going. There have been high emitters that have been being identified and required to submit additional testing into the Air Resources Board. Phase 2, which will be beginning mid-2023, more information will be coming out on this, but basically during that phase, they will actually be required to register vehicles, and fleets will be registered and begin paying compliance fees. This is one of the big differences between smog check and the clean truck check. So many of the vehicles are owned by fleets. They're actually required to register them as they are in similar other CARB programs. Periodic testing compliance will begin in 2024, and that more details will be coming on that in mid-23 on how all of that is going to be rolling out. Major program components consist of really enhancing some of the current programs that are out there. Right now, many heavy-duty vehicles are subject to what we call the periodic smoke inspection program. That is only for fleets that have 2 or more vehicles in them. That program has been around quite a while. This program is bringing all heavy-duty vehicles into the program, as well as having high emitter screening. This is the first time we use this acronym. So CARB uses the acronym PEACS. That stands for Portable Emissions Acquisition System. It's similar to the older RSD systems, but it has a unique CARB spin on it that I will cover in the next slide. As well as OBD will be a big piece of this program in testing the trucks. All right. There's many improved enforcement tools from the prior program, such as compliance is leaked to the DMV registration, similar as it is to a smog check the smog check program. Also, as you mentioned earlier, fleet contractor and facility requirements are a piece of this regulation package. There's also automatic license plate camera recognition. That's also a piece of the PEACS or RSD systems. There's also going to be a separate referee type network, and tester training requirements are also in place, which we'll cover a little more as we move forward. So this is the PEACS system. You can see a picture here on the right. It's kind of hard to pick out, but basically up over the truck is a PVC system that is grabbing some of the exhaust plume from the truck and analyzing it there on site to determine what the emission levels are coming out of the trucks. Owners of any potential high emitting vehicles are given an enforcement notice to submit further testing within 30 days. Tester training and examination. So as beginning with a small program, we will have testers that go out and take testing and take an exam. It's a simple online exam at this point. There are not licenses for the program, so anyone listening today is more than welcome to go out and take that training, take the test, and learn a lot more about the program and a lot of the details. During the training, there is an option to choose whether you want to be listed on CAR's website as a tester that is offering the services. There's a few test methods that will be incorporated in the program in the longer term. OBD vehicles, which for heavy duty are a little different than light duty vehicles. It is 2013 model years and newer for diesel engines, including diesel hybrids, and 2018 model year and newer for alternative fuel engines, including LPG, CNG, and these types of things. Non-OBD vehicles still require what we call an SAE J1667, which is basically a snap idle test where we check the opacity readings from the vehicles. And you can see what one of those meters looks like there in the picture next to it. That also includes a visual inspection if they're doing an opacity test. A little more on the OBD test. There are currently some approved devices. It is similar to what you guys are used to with the BAR's DAD device, basically having a laptop and an interface device to run the tests. The devices are slightly different. There's a little different protocols you're talking to when you're dealing with heavy-duty vehicles, so slightly different equipment is being approved. periodic testing requirements. So there's a lot more testing happening with heavy duties. They travel far more miles in a year than a light duty vehicle does. So we will start the program with testing at 2 times per year, starting not earlier than January 1st of 2024. More details will be rolled out as we move into this year. The number of inspections will increase to 4 times a year, which is what the legislation was shooting at. We're starting slow and moving towards that. All right, periodic testing dates. So for California registered trucks, similar to the smog check program, it will be based on the DMV registration dates. So basically, whatever it's due, it'll be 6 months later, similar when we go to the quarterly system. Non-California and government vehicles that don't have a registration due date will be based on the last digit of the VIN. You can see in the table there how the basic structure of that works. Further resources for the clean truck check. You can see here CARB has numerous places you can go for more information. I will highlight at the bottom, we do have an email set up. The older name, HDINM, is still being used for that email. That is a daily monitored email with both technical staff and call center staff checking on it. I will highlight that anyone from BAR that received calls on the program or anyone that did have specific questions about their fleet or how this is going to work is more than welcome to email that email address for the best response time. Thank you very much for your time.
Greg, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Just remind us all again, it was legislation that required this program to be put in place by Assembly, was it Leyva?
It was Leyva, with good memory. SB 210 was put in place.
Senator, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's SB 210, and that was a few years ago, obviously, and you worked for many years getting regulations adopted. We had some input in that process. Now you're up and running and going on that phased approach.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, let's open up for some questions and comments from advisory group members. Anyone here? Mr. Para.
Thank you for that presentation. Could you go back to slide 6? On slide 6, it says owners of potential high emitters issued a notice to submit to testing. It says 30 days to submit passing compliance. Does that mean if they go ahead and test their vehicle somewhere else and submit a passing score before the 30 days, then it just goes away, or what is that referring to exactly?
Yes, so the best way to explain it is, so that system, that peak system, is going to identify those high emitters. And they'll basically be given a notice saying, hey, you were found to what we think is high emissions on that vehicle. Then you basically go into one of these approved testers that have equipment and go ahead and, if it's an OBD-equipped vehicle, they're going to send CARB that OBD test. If it's an opacity, there's a way they can actually send in the opacity results into CARB. And they're given all those details in that letter if they're given a high emitter violation.
And on slide 4, just real quick on slide 4, I'd like to know, what is that device on the right there? What is that under phase 3?
Oh, yes. So that's interesting. So that is actually a picture. I'm glad you pointed that out. I didn't realize that was there. That is a picture of a telematics device actually strapped up under the truck. So there are OBD, similar to smog check. It does have kind of standalone equipment. There's also a long-term goal to move into the telematics realm. There are no currently approved telematics vendors to participate in the program, but longer term, CARB is hoping that there are more telematics vendors.
Okay. And I think that's all I got. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you for the questions.
Any other comments or questions? Advisory group members online, or excuse me, via the WebEx? Let's open it up for public comment. Anyone in the room? Moderator, how about on the WebEx?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 7. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take about 15 seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, let's continue with the agenda. Thank you very much, Greg. Good luck with continuing implementation. All right, our last formal presentation, and then we have a few agenda items of just handouts and such, but this is the last presentation on the agenda. Auto shop locator update from Clay Leak with BAR's executive office. Oh, about a month or so ago, I asked Zach if he would send an email to all of the advisory group members on some of the things we were working on as it relates to the auto shop locator to further enhance it, and he got a barrage of emails. And he said, "Why'd you make me do this?" Maybe it was a little, I don't know. Did I embellish a little bit? I don't know. I usually do. Anyway, everybody said, why don't you go and present it to the advisory group at the next meeting? So here we are to do so with Clay.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought I was off the hook today, and then, like Pat mentioned, thanks to Zach, here I am again. So just a little bit of quick background. Again, my name is Clay Leak. Thank you for the introduction with BAR's executive office. Lots of modernization efforts underway, some more formalized efforts like ELM, and some kind of, behind the scenes just in terms of process improvement. The auto shop locator is something we introduced a few years back, working with Assemblymember Lowe and the industry as well. So lots going on in terms of modernization, as we've talked about. Also a lot going on in the automotive landscape, right? Lots of technological changes, advanced driver assist systems becoming more common on vehicles every day. Electric vehicles, other types of alternative fuels, right? Lots of movement. In addition, repair electronic authorizations. So lots going on in the automotive landscape as well. We kind of felt like in the impetus for the email that Pat mentioned is kind of looking at that list of business types that is included on the initial application. We felt like there was an opportunity to potentially increase awareness and improve communication between consumers and the industry as we look towards being able to collect that data in a better way than where we're at today. So next slide, please. So historically, these BAR business types that are again on the initial application were captured during the initial application. To update those business types, it required a submission of a paper form to BAR licensing. So again, not a very efficient way, right? Talking about paper. And the most limiting factor is that only 2 of them could be stored, a primary and a secondary. So if you provide 16 services that are listed as part of those business types, we can only collect 2 of them. So obviously not very useful. Limited value for the industry, BAR, and for consumers. As we look towards the future and modernization, we could be in a world very soon where we're not limited to 2 business types. Where we could, if you provide 17 services, we can gather 17 services. And in a perfect world, we would give you real-time access to update those. So if today you offer air conditioning services and you lost your tech, and tomorrow you don't, you could update that list, and very quickly we could communicate that to consumers. Oh, sorry, one back. And then the last point on this slide, the auto shop locator has provided us the ability to give consumers the ability to very quickly find smog check stations, CAP, brake and lamp stations, and also filter for some of those business types, although I've already talked about the limited value of some of the business type data. So next slide. So this is a little small. I apologize for that. The reason I just wanted to briefly show the auto shop locator, I think some of the confusion around the emails and some of the subsequent conversation was around how we generate some of these filters. So for smog check, you see the values under smog check inspector, smog check repair, star, and referee. So all of those values are driven from licensing, not from BAR business types. So one of the existing values for business types is smog check. Well, that isn't really meaningful because I have licensing data that I'd rather point consumers to as opposed to a checkbox, right? Because all of those facilities that are appearing under that filter are licensed to perform those services. And same thing with CAP, and same thing with brake and lamp. So the next slide is where we get into the additional filters where we use some of the business type data. So we took a few liberties when we implemented the Auto Shop Locator just for screen space. Some of the names on the business types on the application are a little bit long, so we just did a little bit of summarize. But for the most part, this existing list is apples to apples. So again, looking ahead, we just felt like it was kind of time to take a look at this list and take into account the calls that you're getting from consumers looking for specific services, take into account some of the movement in the automotive repair industry and the changes to that landscape. Maybe we need a specific category for EVs. Maybe we need a specific category for restorations. That's not currently on there, right? So we just wanted to kind of kick the ball off with some of those conversations and make sure that we're collecting the best information we can to help consumers find the shop that provides the services that they're looking for and help the shops advertise those services to consumers as effectively as possible. And I pretty much covered this slide already. Again, seeking input on that list. How can we best collect that information so ultimately we can provide it to consumers? Looking to provide the best, most succinct, accurate list we can. And again, by doing so, I think we can potentially remove a few of those values that are in there, consolidate a few others, edit a few of the descriptions, and potentially add a few new ones. Restorations was one that I mentioned that might be a good candidate that was thrown out. So certainly willing to take input now, but was more hoping to kind of everybody take this off as a little homework assignment and take a look at that list, and we can work together to kind of refine that list and come up with the best list possible.
That's the list straight from our application, right?
Yeah.
ARD.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it says it on the top there. Sorry, missed it. Okay. Thank you, Clay. That was quick. Got us, I think, back
That was
on
the
track.
quick version.
Yeah, we're
doing my best.
Maybe get out by one. Questions, comments from advisory group members? Mr. Gallo.
Just real quick, I got to tell you, you made a comment a while back where new business could go to the locator app, and if their ARD is posted, they would at least be able to find it. That's worked twice on a couple of things I was working with.
Right.
And so really appreciate that. I agree with you. I think we need to look at restoration shops and things like that because we deal with a lot of inquiries through our members where customers have gone to a restoration shop, they're not registered with BAR. And so I think it's something we definitely need to look at. But I really appreciate the work you've done on this app. I think it continues to improve. And so with that, I'll do my homework.
Good.
The only thing I might add is that on brake and lamp, you might want to indicate whether they do motorcycles or not.
So we do have a category for motorcycle repair under the business types right now, and I have heard from various consumers that's a very useful filter because there's not a ton of shops that specialize in motorcycle repair.
Brake and lamp is special for motorcycles, and not everybody does. Brake and lamp can do motorcycles.
Oh, a specific category just for motorcycle brake and lamp?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You're eliminating them from the category.
No, certainly we can consider, yeah, I'm open to all ideas in terms of if we can help consumers find the specific service they're looking for. Sure, that's great. We'll take that down, yeah.
Matthew.
I think someone might have asked this at a previous conversation, but I'm just looking at the Auto Shop Locator now, and are you going to add websites on these? I know there's a phone number now and an address. Was that the intent, eventually put a website?
We do not currently collect that information on behalf of shops, so no. Yeah. We very recently started collecting email address as part of the application, which obviously we will not publish on the Auto Shop Locator, but we do not have that data currently.
Okay.
Could we maybe add a field that the shop could add their website if they chose to? And make just, I mean, I know you don't want to give me access. I don't blame you. But
we could certainly take that down as an opportunity to improve the Auto Shop Locator. I mean, I'm a big proponent. Obviously, you talk a lot about continuous improvement, and that's really the goal here is to build a framework from which we can kind of continue to improve. So we can certainly take that idea and bounce it around.
Megan McKernan.
So if you could just clarify, because you have all the business types listed here, and I think possibly from that email, at least from my perspective, when you had those candidates for removal, that was kind of like, although you now further explain the smog check one, and that makes perfect sense, because I think now it's going to actually be more clear. But so no final decision's been made as to what's going to be on or off this list?
Nope.
So new car, dealer, et cetera, those are still possibilities that could
Those are,
stay.
and one of the really valid points around those particular two was a lot of consumers looking for warranty repairs could potentially use that filter, and that was something we hadn't thought about. So we're really, relying on you guys as experts in the industry to help us with this, So
thank you.
No decisions have been made, and just seeking input at this point.
Get rid of tune-up.
That's another interesting topic. That one's a lot of conversation around that particular one, and yeah.
And break out, brake in front end, break out those two, make a brake repair, and then front end, like, is not never. I do brakes, but I don't do alignments.
Gotcha.
Please send us comments through your emails. We're trying to take notes on the fly here, but it'd be better if we got them in writing and didn't misrepresent what we thought we heard.
And if we have differing viewpoints or differing opinions, we can certainly schedule some follow-up meetings to kind of talk through some of those differences and work that out, yeah.
I think the really exciting part of this is it now allows, we've been limited to two business types on the application because it's a paper application, primary and secondary business type. And many shops have said, well, I do way more than that. But there was a limitation there of how much information we could capture through that paper application. Now we have the ability to capture much more through this locator.
That capability
tied to
would
the
be
online application,
yes,
right?
Yeah, would be more through the Elm and the portal that we've kind of talked about. So we're not quite there yet, but and there's other opportunities. If we have a more complete list, we could target communication to, shops that provide specific services. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value behind kind of collecting this data and having a more accurate list by shop. Yeah.
And I know just recently Jack had emailed me a suggestion to further enhance the auto shop locator. And I think the exciting thing is it is seemingly endless. There are a lot of opportunities here to do some great things to reach out to consumers, to promote the industry, and the like. I might remind everyone that this came about due to some legislation, AB 471, Mr. Lowe's bill. He was actually looking to go much into this area with a kind of a rating system type of deal, and we thought give us a shot at trying to do something rather than put it in legislation. And after Clay and his team put it together, we gave a demonstration to Mr. Lowe, and he said, I don't see the need for legislation on this. And so that's good. That was good news. So any other comments from advisory group members who are listening via WebEx? Oh, okay. Let me see if there's anyone on the WebEx. No comments there, moderator, on the WebEx?
No comments from the advisory group.
Advisory group. I'm going to come back to an advisory group member who's here in person, Mr. Parra.
Thank you for your presentation. I was hoping that maybe in the future we can get an update to see how many people are using this and how deep they're going into it. Also, maybe comparison as to how they're using it now and how they're using it then, after we get it enhanced, to see if that sizable improvement. That would be good to have.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly consider that. Yeah, thanks.
All right, we'll open up for public comment either in person or via the WebEx. Let's start with in person. I don't see any hands raising up, so moderator, if you could open up for public comment.
We are now taking public comment via WebEx. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And it looks like our first request comes from VAC. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, very good. A couple of things. I'll make it quick because I know we're pushing time here. My name is Bruce Cosby. I'm owner of Advanced Automotive Training in Rancho Cordova. And I've been in communication with Chief DeRay on the instructor application process. Seems that there was a modification to Section 9 of the application process that was requiring a degree, 6 units college degrees in order to become a bureau instructor. And in checking the California Code of Regulations 3340.33.1 does not indicate that that is a requirement to become a bureau instructor. And I know in communicating with the chief, he's looking into it, and I'm not sure if Chief DeRay's had a chance to consult with those involved in this decision process. It was a recent change that was added recently, recently being within the last few years. It had never been required before. And 3340.33.1 clearly states that qualifying experience in lieu of meets the requirement. And so I had put forth one individual and was holding off on another 2 individuals pending the chief's decision on this. One of them of which recently was denied. He holds a AS degree in automotive technology and has been in the industry for about, well, over 25 years. And so he brings a lot to the table. And since we're losing a lot of technicians and shops, technology is expanding. We have fewer people coming into the trades. It would seem to me that letting that type of experience go out the door is not helping the situation. In addition, I think that we should be looking at something on the order of a mentoring program as well to capture that knowledge that's going out the door. So what prompted this conversation, Chief, is there is some test dates coming up soon that the Bureau will be holding the panels for prospective bar instructors. And time is kind of closing in to meet that window. So I was hoping that maybe this can be pushed as a priority so that we can get some, clarification on this. So I was wondering, Chief, if you had a chance to comment on that, or if we're still in the homework stages on that.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate you attending the meeting in addition to writing me earlier this week. The email I got from you received when I was traveling out of town, so I hadn't had a chance to do much more than just schedule a meeting for early next week. So hoping to meet with the team internal to the Bureau and then get back to you shortly after the meeting
Okay.
with some answers back to your questions. Thank you very much for reaching out to us.
Okay, yeah, not a problem. I look forward to your response on that. And didn't mean to hold your feet to the fire in a public forum on it, but as I said, these test dates are coming up, and I know one of them, I believe, is in San Jose, and one of the prospective applicants had indicated he doesn't mind traveling to that location from Sacramento to make his presentation, or at least start the process for it. I know there's written exams and so forth. So I just kind of wanted to put it out there, a sense of urgency on this. Second question I have also, real quick, is there was some discussion that's been out there for probably a couple of years of taking 76 model year to 83 model year out of the program, basically tightening up the cut points on those vehicles and then getting them off the roads, and then running, I guess, 84 to current model year for a while, and then eventually 84 to 95 coming out of the program, leaving the bar OIS 96 to current as the main platform. Is that just a bunch of rumor, Chief, out there, or is there some projection to moving in that direction? Considering that the Bar 97 dyno is pushing 30 years old, and we've got parts problems and technicians that can fix them, and so forth. And the question begs to be asked. How many 76 Ford LTDs are running around California? Knowing that the smog program is very expensive to administer, seems like lost leaders to me. Is there going to be any movement towards removing 76 and ultimately to 95 out of the program? Chief.
There's no push from the state. Still a significant and disproportionate amount of pollution caused from those older vehicles. So they're still subject to the program. I haven't seen any legislation introduced to exempt those vehicles. As you know, that one time there, and you may recall, there was a rolling model year exemption of 30 years, and after that had been on the books for a few years, it was eventually repealed. So I think there isn't an appetite to removing those vehicles. And I should add, you may have missed the presentation earlier in the agenda on our legislation and regulations update as it relates to our sunset review bill, AB 1263. Do I have the bill number right? It actually is proposing that we continue testing those vehicles, but consider an alternative testing network for testing those and inspecting those older vehicles through a centralized model similar to the referee, I guess you could say, but also allowing those in the private sector, those licensed smog check stations that wanted to continue testing those vehicles, also to operate under that network. That is one of the proposals in that sunset review bill, AB 1263, that's pending before the legislature. It actually made it out of its first policy committee, the Assembly Business Professions Committee, on 2 days ago.
Yeah, I have it up on the screen. I've been trying to play catch up with it. I did come in a little bit late in the start of this. Am I to understand that we are looking at 96 to current model year then? We'll be receiving the OIS inspection. Am I reading that correctly?
If that bill were to go through, that would be the direction. Yes, that 96. Okay. We'd roll back the OBD only with a visual inspection to the 2000 from the current 2000 and newer model year to the 1996 and newer model year. Right, and it looks like the launch date for that is no earlier than January of 2025, I believe I read. Yeah, it's to give us the ability to transition into that with the industry and others. Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm putting out accurate information in the classroom, that's all. So. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate you taking my call. Thank you. And I'll get back to you next week. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, sir. I look forward to it. Thank you. Okay. So I don't know if there's any comments. We were opening it up for public comments on the auto shop locator update. Bruce, you kind of jumped us ahead a little bit on the agenda. Any other comments relating to Clay's presentation specifically?
No other requests for comments.
Okay. Then why don't I continue? Now, hold on a minute. Let me think about this. Let's just quickly do the enforcement statistics and licensing statistics. Those are handouts only. I'll do them, combine them as one agenda item. They are virtually the same types of presentations, obviously different information. They're third quarter data. Some of it was already covered in a more aggregate form by licensing program manager Darren Dumas, but here's a quarterly report for his program, and then also the enforcement program. Patrick Lutfi from the Enforcement Operations Branch has put together and this has been revised. I want to commend the enforcement team for modifying the report to be ADA compliant. It was, and it's got a different look to it than previously, but it is all the same types of information we previously presented. Any questions or comments? This is kind of a standing report, so I don't think we'll get much, but I'll still open it up. Any comments from the advisory group? Public comment? Nothing here in the room. How about on the WebEx?
We are
For
once again
the enforcement and licensing statistics handouts.
We are once again open for public comment, this time on the enforcement and licensing statistic handouts. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dialing users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And our first request comes from 352 Innovation. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. All right, 352, we're going to send you another request to unmute your microphone. On a mobile device, it's going to be at the bottom center, and it's going to be next to the speaker button. All right, that appears to be our only request for comment at the moment. And 352 has lowered their hand.
Okay, let's now move to the next agenda item is public comment on any item that was not already presented, that wasn't on this agenda. And Bruce kind of already did that. Bruce Cosby. Anybody else? Bud Rice, waiting so patiently. Thank you, Bud.
Hi, Bud Rice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a quick comment about the call we had earlier. I didn't write her name down, but it was Denise or Debbie or something like that. I can't recall what her name was. As I was listening to her, I could sense the frustration and pain in her voice. And one thing I've kind of thought about, we may have even talked about it in the past, but we used to have an ombudsman that was part of BAR. And the purpose of the ombudsman was an advocate for the shops and somebody who could be the go-between between the regulators at BAR and the shops out in the field. And this person was kind of an advocate, would hear the story, see what was going on, and then see if there wasn't some way to get some help in terms of what was going on with that particular shop or with the industry in general. And I know we've kind of lost that, but in some cases, shops don't have the relationships that some do, where they have a comfort level in being able to call and talk to somebody. Other places don't have that comfort level. So the ability to maybe have a stopgap, something in the middle there where somebody could speak with an advocate that might be able to help them navigate through some of the rocky waters sometimes when it comes to dealing with public officials. So thank you.
Thank you, Bud. Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Dave Kusa, to my right.
Thanks, Pat. So Donnie Cipher, who is the Executive Director of the National Automotive Service Task Force, was hoping to be here, but he had to get on a plane. So I'm going to make comments on his behalf. So the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services is tasked with enforcing certain laws surrounding security requirements from manufacturers. NASDF is I'll use the gateway between automotive industry and automotive manufacturers for issues with tooling and or information, and they are tasked with implementing the Vehicle Security Professional Program, which is the new name for LSID. So NASDF has identified certain maybe manufacturers or tool manufacturers or individuals that are not playing by the rules, and has tried to interface with BSIS to get some movement to solve these problems. The result of nothing happening is consumers are not getting necessarily the best service at the fair price, and perhaps are ending up with counterfeit keys or inferior products that don't work well, because there's lots of ways around, unfortunately, the theft stuff. And if it doesn't get enforced, it's not going to happen. So what we would hope for is, I was hoping that we would have the Consumer Affairs presentation to do this at the time, but hopefully asking that BAR can work with industry, Department of Consumer Affairs, and the BSIS to bring everybody together, maybe even a presentation at our next BAG meeting, if that makes sense, to try and get this moving so that we can get these laws enforced. Happy to have further conversation, offline. Bring Donnie in. He's the expert on this. So hopefully we can make that happen. And then second item, been a lot of conversation in ASCCA around palm reader scanners. A lot of shops are having a hard time getting them to work reliably. I don't know if it's a user problem, a hardware problem, a scanning problem initially. I don't know where the problem lies, but there's been a lot of comments brought to me and to Jack surrounding this issue. So ask that if BAR can reach out to industry and hear what's going on. Maybe, I don't know what solutions might be there, but discover some solutions. And I know we're up against that date of mandatory use May 1st. Yeah. So what's that, tomorrow? Sorry.
Couple more days.
Couple more days. So it maybe even move back that, if it's possible, move back that date 30 days or something until we can get this sorted out, so that shops aren't having the frustration of not being able to get in and having all kinds of issues with the palm readers. And that Jack mentioned, she thought maybe there was a video, or Pat, you said?
Yeah, no, I actually, Jack Molodonov, I actually reviewed the website, and there is a video that's put together by the BAR about how to properly clean your hands, what not to do, what to do. There is a video, but you didn't even know about it.
I didn't, yeah.
And I don't know if the shops even know about it, but I thought it was a good video. It's something maybe just have it sent out on the BAR blast, so they can take a look at it, because I think those kinds of educational things are very helpful.
Yeah, no, we have bombarded the industry through the analyzers with blasts. I told them to do so, but I haven't heard anyone getting sick and tired of them yet. But maybe they missed that. But yes, it did point directly to our Q&As or FAQs, I don't know what they're called, and our video, which is contained on our website. So I'm hoping people are taking the opportunity to look at that. We've encountered a few, I don't know, a small percentage, I should say, of individuals who may need to be rescanned if the scanning didn't occur, and we have offered that up. Haven't gotten much, and I think we were up to somewhere in the neighborhood of high 90% tile of licensees who've already gone through and scanned, which led us to moving forward with the 30-day notification to start the biometric scanning, incorporating that into the smog check come next Monday. So we'll take a look at it. I haven't heard anything through the help desk or anything like that is causing us concern about starting that date or continue with that date on May 1st. But I'll reconvene with the leadership later today or tomorrow to make sure we're good to go on May 1st. But if you know of anyone in particular, please let us know and have them reach out to me or Clay or Garrett in the back room.
Push that up.
Thank you. And then who was the individual, who was the expert on the...
Donnie Cipher.
Donnie Cipher, okay. And as your ombudsman, for now, I will make sure I reach out to my counterpart with the Bureau for the
Security and Investigative Services.
Yes, BSIS, Bureau of Security and Investigative Services. There's a bureau chief, and we'll talk about what we can do to get your issues before the Bureau and maybe have a presentation at our next advisory group meeting in July.
Excellent. Thanks, Pat.
Was there anything else? I can't remember. Okay. Okay. Any other comments for items that weren't on the agenda? Moderator, could you please open it up for one last go-around for items not on the agenda.
We are taking comments for items not on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And our first request comes from 352. I think I've found a suitable workaround. You should be able to unmute at will, 352 Innovations.
I'm 352 Innovation, and I wasn't planning on saying anything this entire meeting, but then the entire thing came up, and I'm kind of a nerd, so that was fun. But Christina, the shop owner, she broke my heart, and I don't know if she's still there or not, but if you guys could maybe pass along my information to her. I apologize because this is not I didn't want to come across like this, but I don't know how else to say it. I just started my own business, and I'm trying to help shops with the EV stuff and whatnot. And I want to help her out, and I think I can really help her out with exactly the things that she was really upset about. And I would love to pass along my information to her or get hers or something. You know, all the legit. I didn't come here to try to sell anything. It's not cool. But she just broke my heart, and I'm also Christina, and I'm also a business owner, and I would like to help her. And so please let me know how I can get in contact with her. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I didn't catch your name.
Christina Kuberit. It's in the chat too. Thank you.
Okay, great. We'll make sure we get your information through the moderator, and we will put you in touch with the other Christina at the beginning of the meeting who commented. I appreciate your offer there, and thank you for stepping in. Any other comments for items not on the agenda?
Bear with me just a moment, please. We're going to make one last pass through the different boxes that we have open. All right, I think that's all of our requests for comments at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. The last agenda item is for an announcement of the next Bar Advisory Group meeting. We are scheduled for Thursday, July 20th of 2023 in this room for now, but always check the website and pay attention to the actual notice, because sometimes we do get bounced or bumped from the room and moved to the other hearing room across the parking lot. And one just last final comment. We do have, and I'm sorry we ran late today. I know we had a busy agenda, but a very informative one. I'm glad we were able to get through all the presentations. We have a public workshop, again, as a reminder, in this very same room in just 37 minutes. Starting at 2 p.m., the Vehicle Safety Systems Inspection Program and the regulations we're working on will start at 2 p.m. Thank you all very much. We are adjourning, and it is 1:23 p.m.